Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Tuesday, June 12th, 4:30 meeting. We don't have a quorum here, but we don't need to have a quorum if we're not going to vote on anything yet. And so I refer you to the agenda packet. It's there available for anyone who wishes to see it. The report of disbursements as well as the miscellaneous documents. We will first on our agenda, let me ask if we can have, shall we have roll call at this time? Roll call, please.
Vierasech, Kaufman Gomez,
Present.
Dutra, Garcia, Hernandez, Hurst.
And here. Thank you very much. Moving on to our agenda, first we're going to have a report to the council. No action is required, but everybody is required to pay attention. This is Measure G report by Revenue Measure Oversight Committee Chair Robin Matthews Johnson, as required by the Watsonville Municipal Code. We'll have an opportunity to hear that report, review the attachments and the report, and offer council questions up and public input as well. So welcome, Reverend Matthew Johnson. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service on the Measure G committee. I was there at your last meeting and was enthralled by the warm reception that everyone provided, but more or less the great results that we're achieving. So give us that report, please.
I would be happy to. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reverend Robin Matthews Johnson. I'm the pastor at Watsonville First United Methodist Church on Stanford Street. I'm this year's chair of the Measure G committee, and I'm here to make the required public report of fiscal year 2016-2017 Measure G revenue and expenses. If I could just digress for just a second, I wanted to tell you a man's wife started yelling at him one day. "Hey, why are you yelling at me?" he asked. "I'm mad because I found a piece of paper in your pocket," replied his wife, "with the name Doris written on it." The man explained, "2 weeks ago, when I went to the races, Doris was the name of one of the horses I bet on." I don't like gambling myself, but this woman was more tolerant. "Oh, honey," she said to her husband, "I should have known you had a good explanation." 3 days later, she started yelling at him again, but this time even louder. He said, "What's this all about?" She replied, "Your horse called." I bring that up because no matter who we are, we should know by now that we all need help sometimes, and that is, of course, where I come in as chair of the Measure G committee. I'm tasked by the voters of the city to present the financials and the budget from the last fiscal year, and I wanted to just let you know that I'm here to help you in the city council and the city, too. So thank you for being here. So I am reporting on the fiscal year, which ended almost a year ago, and my numbers are rounded off to the nearest 1,000. The Measure G budget, compared with audited revenue and expenses for 2016 through 2017, the audited revenue is $3,547,000, which exceeded the budgeted revenue of $2,890,000 by a little over $650,000. The 2016 to 17 audited expenses of $3.284 million were below budgeted expenses of $4.342 million by a little over $1 million. Now, the fund balances. The fire and police started the year with Measure G fund balances of $2,523,000. The police starting fund balance was $1,366,000. The police ending fund balance was $1,813,000. And the fire starting fund balance was $1,157,000. The fire ending fund balance was $1,008,000. You can see why I told you to joke. I'm trying to keep you guys awake. But this is very important information. The police department's 60% share of the 2016-17 Measure G fund revenue was $2,128,000. The police department spent $1,810,000 of the Measure G revenue. $933,000 went to services. Measure G pays the salaries of 4 full-time Measure G police officers, and a 5th Measure G police officer was hired. Measure G also continues to pay for 4 full-time professional non-sworn positions: a crime analyst, a police service specialist, a community organizer, and a youth specialist. $158,000 went to the Police Activities League, PAL, youth programs, and $147,105 toward the Caminos Hacia el Éxito program. $556,000 went to purchase equipment. Of that, $255,000 purchased 5 police vehicles and a van to transport prisoners to the county jail in Santa Cruz. And the transport helps keep police officers in the city of Watsonville by reducing the number of trips required to transport the prisoners to Santa Cruz in the county jail. The other police vehicles were 2 K-9 patrol vehicles, 2 unmarked police cars, and a black and white police patrol car. The police department also spent $76,000 to purchase 20 more digital radios. Another $94,000 was used to purchase desktop and mobile computers. Any questions about that so far? All right. Now we move to fire. Fire revenues and expenditures. The fire department's 40% share of the 2016-17 Measure G funds revenue was $1,419,000. The fire department spent $1,474,000. $601,000 of that paid for 4 Measure G firefighters at a cost of $490,000. $873,000 was for equipment purchases, of which $739,000 was for down payments on 2 new pumper trucks. One of the things we learned on Measure G is that you don't just go to a store and pick up your pumper truck for the fire department. You actually work with a company, set forth what kinds of details you need, and you specifically order them to build it for you. And so that's the process that was going on for the fire department. With regard to reserve funds, the Measure G required contingency reserve fund is at 10% of budgeted revenues. Fiscal year 16 to 17 ended the year with $2,921,000 in total reserves. Much of the excess reserves has been accumulating and are earmarked for future capital investments, including the purchase payments for those fire trucks. It's a multi-year process. Maintenance of effort. Measure G requires that the general fund pay a minimum maintenance of effort for both police and fire. The general fund met and exceeded this. The police department maintenance of effort was $12,360,000. The city exceeded its required police department maintenance of effort by spending $16,682,000 from the general fund. The fire department maintenance of effort was $5,670,000. The city exceeded the required fire department maintenance of effort by spending $6,950,000 from the general fund. Any questions on that? All right. Administrative costs. No more than 2% of Measure G revenue may be used for administrative costs. 2% of $3,547,000 is about $71,000 for last year. A little less than 24,000, 0.07%, was actually spent on administrative costs. So all is good there. And in summary and conclusion, I can report that all the 2016 to 2017 Measure G funds were properly budgeted, received, spent, and audited as described in the committee's annual report. We're also excited and challenged to work with city officials and our community to see what we can do to continue this level of service and funding into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see if the council has any questions at this time, and then we'll open it up to public.
Sure. Thank you. Any questions from the council?
Councilmember Kaufman Gomez.
Yes, thank you. A couple questions that I have for you. One is, have you discussed like a wish list of things that the departments are looking to use the funds in the next fiscal year? And the other is maybe talk a little bit about the Measure G itself in terms of its time, where we're at in terms of discussion of the future on that.
All right. So with regard to a wish list, it's very true that both departments, our Watsonville Fire Department and our Watsonville Police Department, have worked within their departments in the city to look at what funding is coming in and to estimate what they need in looking towards the future. For instance, I can just give one off the top of my head. They're really the experts, but for instance, the Watsonville Police Department is looking at setting up the restroom and shower facilities for the women officers. They're women, we obviously need women officers along with our men in the city, and they're looking at how they can make that work so that the women officers can change and get into their uniforms as needed. And that's a long-range planning, but that's part of the project. As you know, in 2014, the voters in June voted for Measure G, and it is the way it is currently set up. There's a 7-year period. It sunsets in 2020, as I understand it, but it also says directly in the measure that the voters will be given an opportunity to either look at stopping it at that point or continuing it, depending on how they see the need is being met and so on. So that was actually written into the measure itself, that there's a possibility of having it continue. And frankly, after being on the committee and seeing the amazing work that our two departments are doing within the city, including with the youth, I think that the committee is really looking at the level, trying to figure out ways to continue that level of service into the future. Does that answer your question,
Yes,
Trina?
thank you.
You're welcome. Another
Councilmember
question.
Garcia?
I just need a little bit more clarification on what you just said.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you saying that the committee could decide to make it go, or does it have to go back to the voters?
Oh, absolutely, to the voters.
Okay.
It isn't the committee, but if you read the way the original bill was written, it says it will either end at that time or it could be continued by the voters of the city.
Okay.
So yes, it's not the oversight committee. Our job is just looking at the numbers, make sure the auditor is doing what they're supposed to, and that they're being spent and utilized the correct way. So.
And so I really appreciate this pamphlet that I received with more details
Yes.
in terms of how the monies are being used. I'm just wondering, is there anything from either the police department or the fire department that they're really, really proud that they were able to do?
Well, I think that actually everything they've been doing has been fantastic, and it's increased the safety, and they have met the goals of Measure G and exceeded those by the new officers, what they've been doing within the department and in the city, and so on. So I would say it's a combination of the new officers, the programs they develop. But if you want, we could invite Chief Honda, for instance, to talk about what he knows a lot more about it than I do.
Mayor, Council. Yeah, so we're pretty proud of a lot of things we've done. We've been able to replace much of our outdated equipment. But the most important thing we've been doing, we spent almost $250,000 on our preventive and intervention programs such as Caminos and our PAL. I think we've really we're able to touch a lot more kids and our youth in our Watsonville than we were able to do before. So that's a big thing. And of course, we've been able to replace our fleet. A lot of the capital improvements that we needed are much needed. Some of the things we're looking at going forward for this year, and we've been pretty frugal with our money because we do have some big, high-priced CIP and other issues coming up. So we really, really need to go forward with our body-worn camera project. I think as a police department in this date and time, we have to have body-worn cameras. And so that's going to be a high-priced item. We're actually moving forward with the pilot project now. And Measure G will be paying for our cameras and ongoing memory costs for maintaining the program. And then the other thing is the chairperson mentioned, we are looking at expanding our women's locker room. Right now, average for women in police departments is about 10% nationwide. Currently, we're only at 5 to 6%, which we're severely understaffed as far as demographics. I want to increase that, but I can't do that until I have a bigger locker room. Our current locker room is it's very small, and it's actually kind of embarrassing. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand the locker room, and my goal is to fill it. And that'll hopefully bring us up to about 30% women in our department, which I think is very important. Any other questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
We know where to find you when we have those questions. Chairman, is there any other thing that you'd like to share with us before we go to some more questions?
I gave you my report, but if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, let's see if Dr. Bills has got a couple questions, I'm sure. At least. We hope.
Well, one of the things, I see how Measure G is written. One of the things it did not address was facilities in many ways. Is there a way that the new one, if and when we decide to go out for another one, that it would address facilities?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. Matt, you want to help?
I'm happy to chime in on that one, Mayor and Council. So at the last Oversight Committee meeting, we did have a discussion about the future of Measure G, and the committee agreed to set a visioning meeting with all of the original stakeholders and other community members that might be interested in the future of Measure G. And I think an important part of that discussion is going to be what the structure of Measure G looks like going forward. And part of that work is going to be based on what the community tells us and what the community thinks is most important. And of course, as with any sales tax measure, we would be doing some public opinion polling on that. And I would see facility investment as being, certainly as being one of those areas that we would want to test and check in with the community to see if that is something that would be a need if the community wants to move forward with the renewal.
And when are you having your visioning meeting?
Our plan is to send those dates out as soon as possible. If we're going to look at wanting to talk about a renewal prior to the measure's sunset in 2020-21, we need to get working on it as soon as possible. And so our plan is to try to get that meeting set in the next month or so.
If I can jump in, our scheduled meeting is not till February, and we agreed at the last meeting unanimously to go ahead and start meeting sooner than that. So that would probably be late summer or early fall.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Dutra.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everybody. I wanted to say thank you for the Police Activities League. It's something very close to me. It's in my district. I've gone in and I've seen the after-school programs. I've seen little kids, and they actually have a lot of times it's one-on-one with an older kid helping them out. Mm-hmm. I'm really moved by it, and I wish that the community can really see, our money at work and really, how it's benefiting the community. And I hope that this continues, and I just want to say thank you for your support of PAL, and I know Crest is doing great things there, and everybody who supports it as well. So thank you, and I've seen it firsthand how this is really affecting our community.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I will point out that at our last committee meeting, there is a video that the Watsonville Police Department has put together, a short video outlining the Camino program, and it's great. I would highly recommend that the council take a look at it if they have on another meeting, because I think sometimes the pictures say more than the words can.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, the council should see that video. I was there at that meeting, and I was glad to see the focus on prevention. And did the committee have any discussions as to what might have happened had we not had Measure G? Was there any sidebar conversations along those lines?
Not that I know of per se, but I think that we're just so grateful for this opportunity, because you can see what the city police and fire departments have done with those funds, and it's amazing. I actually have a flash drive with a video on it. I could give it to someone here if, I don't know. It's not technically on your agenda now, but I do actually have it. So I could give it to the council for having received it from Chief Honda.
We'll be glad to take a look at it at another date or another time, but we're going to be revisiting many things about G, and it's important that the public see that and that we get that on our website, perhaps, if it's appropriate, and make sure that the public knows of the work that's taken place and the cooperation among many individuals, and once again, the focus on prevention and youth services and the bonus that has sprung from that. Our crime rates, knock on wood, have dropped from previous dates and are look pretty decent compared to some of the other surrounding municipalities and areas too. And so we say congratulations and thank you to the voters for their confidence and the good stewardship that the committee has provided us. Thank you very much for the written update, and we hope that it'll get widely circulated and be in our library for our patrons to see as well. More comments from the council? Councilmember Bilicic?
Well, just a kind of says more of what you just said. I think that our community has to look at what has happened with Measure G funds, and all you have to do is look at statistics. And our fire department has purchased things that they wouldn't be able to have purchased. And our police department, I mean, what can you say? The violence is down. Good things are happening here. And all you have to do is look at the surrounding neighborhoods and say, ooh, but it's not here. And again, knock on wood, because anything can happen anytime, anywhere. But I think that the funding has made a difference with our police and fire departments.
I agree.
And thank you for your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now that Councilmember Hernandez has arrived, do you have any questions on Measure G or any statements you'd like to make before we go out to the public, or would you like to, let's just go out to the public then, and we'll see if Councilmember Hernandez has something else to add. Anyone in the public who wish to speak on this item on Measure G Oversight Committee report, add to the great wisdom of the chairperson? Please thank the committee for us. Seeing no public input, we'll return this to the council. Any further messages of hope? Councilmember Kaufman Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we did hear from Chief Honda, can we also hear from Chief Brutto about our fire department and their wish list and goals for our Measure G funds? I know that we have the apparatus. Those are pretty big expenditures, but not that I'm going to put you on the spot like instantly in the next 5 seconds, but ultimately, let's hear from you.
Well, it's a great chance to hear from the chief.
Sorry, Pablo Barreto, Fire Chief, and I'm sorry I missed a question. Chief Honda was talking to me.
Not that we're tattletaling in any way here. Let us know what your goals are for the expenditures maybe in the next year, fiscal year out or so.
Sure. Just so you're aware, we recently just approved a purchase of a $1.4 million tiller truck. Our current tiller truck, one is a 1999, the other one's a 2001. So they've exceeded the life of the vehicles themselves. We just received one fire engine of the two. The other one has a minor repair that they'll fix and deliver here within the next couple days. That was about, I think it was a $1.1 million. So in essence, between all the safety equipment, all the special equipment that we purchased for the city, roughly within the 3-year period, we've spent about $3 million. Of those $3 million, none of it has come out of the general fund. Our overtime is at the lowest we've seen in my 25 years here, and that's all due to extra staffing, training, and the personnel giving their support by doing their part to reduce overtime. So it is a cooperative effort. Measure G has made a difference for the city and our personnel, which is the most important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's go out to the public on this item. This item, Measure G Oversight. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none, then we will accept the report and say thank you very much to the committee. Thank you for your leadership and your chairmanship, and let's plan for the future.
Right.
Thank you so
very much.
Next up on our agenda is item number B on our afternoon session. This is the update on Public Works and Utility Department's Solid Waste Division. They have 10 minutes for this, and so let's see if we can stay within timeline. You know, this is close to my heart as a member of the Integrated Waste Task Force countywide, and so I don't know who sent me there. The council members thought that I was more well-equipped to handle integrated solid waste than anyone else, apparently. So please go forward.
Well.
Yes.
Here we go. You putting me under pressure on the 10-minute thing, so I was ready to go. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. Gabe Gordo, Assistant Director of Public Works and Utilities, and I have Mr. Palmisano here joining me for confidence. It's been a while since we've spoken about solid waste in the city, and want to share with you some of the things that we've been working on in the last couple of years. I think it's been 2 years since we've been here. So in particular, this afternoon, I want to speak to you about our collection services, our landfill, and our waste and recycle center, and some of the things we're working on in the future. And just want to remind you that our collection services include residential and commercial garbage collection, residential yard waste collection, commercial food waste now, which just began last year, residential and commercial recycling. So what are some of the major things we've been working on lately? So we've been working really diligently on implementing AB 1826. What is AB 1826? So in January 1st of 2016, the state passed this bill requiring mandatory commercial organics recycling. So it requires organic diversion from all businesses and multi-family dwellings in particular. So what is organic waste? Organic waste is defined as food waste, green waste, landscape and pruning waste, non-hazardous wood waste, and soiled food paper waste that is mixed in the food waste. So how is this bill being implemented? It was designed to be implemented in a phased manner. In January 1st of 2016, jurisdictions were required to have an organic waste recycling collection program within their jurisdiction. In April 1st of that same year, businesses that generated more than 8 cubic yards of organic waste per week were required to subscribe to a service. And then in January 2017, businesses that generated 4 cubic yards of organic waste per week were required to subscribe. And next year, on January 1st, businesses that generate 4 cubic yards of commercial waste per week are going to have to subscribe to the service in efforts to remove the organics from the landfill. So although the bill required it and had the specific language that was very specific and it was mandatory, we took a voluntary approach similar to what we've done in the past. We always like to work with the community, with the business, especially with the businesses, because these things cost money. They require space. They may require additional work from staff. So we identified the companies or the businesses and the apartment complexes that would fall under these categories. Staff went and did site visits, spoke to the managers, the owners, to make them aware that this bill was coming and coming on board during the spring of that year. So we listened to them. We came back to our offices and we looked at how we can support them and what best approach we needed to take as far as to get them into compliance with the new regulations. So that year we enrolled 34 businesses, and some of the businesses that we enrolled didn't have to. They actually approached us when they heard that we were doing this because they wanted to participate because it was good for the environment, it's good for the community, and they wanted to get this service in their business. So we've been really successful at the implementation and following the schedules. We're doing really good. Actually, on April 26th of this year, we had our annual audit from CalRecycle staff, and they provided us with a lot of compliments on our programming. They were very impressed by our programming. They were really impressed by our staff in particular. One of the comments that we received was that they could see the passion and that we truly live our efforts for reducing and recycling and diverting all this material from getting to our landfill. So we were really happy. We passed with flying colors, and we're really happy to share that with you. So what do we do? I mean, what is solid waste all about? What do we do? So we want to share a slide with you. And the top portion of this chart, we show the amount of garbage that we collect in both our residential and commercial sectors. And the bottom part of this graph, I wanted to also show you all of the items that we're diverting. And if you see look at the bottom part, the blue line, that's our recycling efforts. And they've been steady. They're increasing a little bit, but they're steady at very high levels. We see how the yard waste numbers are starting to increase. They're not exponentially high, but they're increasing. And then the food scraps. So all these materials that you see, particularly the green and the purple line, we're going to our landfill at one point. So we removed them from them. So the tonnages that we put in our landfill, we increased the life of our landfill by, I believe at the end it's going to be like almost a couple of years. So that is directly reflective on our efforts on spreading the word, providing the programs to our community, and living it day in, day out within our division. So today, as far as on the organic side, we've collected 2,200 tons of organic material. Like I said, this is material that was going to our landfill at one point that was counted against us as garbage. So a little bit of effort does go a long way, and it's just going to increase over in the next years. So when I move on and speak about our landfill, as you are aware, our landfill is nearing its useful life. So our landfill consists of 5 phases. It started operating in the 1960s. We are currently operating in phase number 3 here, as you see in this map. It was opened in 1996. So in April of 2016, we provided notification to Cal Recycle that we were getting near our useful life and that we needed to close our landfill and follow their guidelines. They have a set of regulations that require us to notify them a certain period before we believe that its useful life is going to end, so that we can follow a proper closure process. It's estimated that we will end disposal there in April of next year, with the formal closure of that phase to be in 2021. They require a couple years of settling and another infrastructure to be in place before they can allow us to kind of start the clock, if you per se, with the estimated final closure in April of 2023. So what's going to happen? What are we doing with our materials? So in 2008, we entered into an agreement with Monterey Regional Waste Management District for waste disposal. So we currently deliver all of our waste to Monterey Regional. We had designed our routes in such a manner that we can easily shift from going to our landfill, shift from our landfill to Monterey Regional's landfill in Marina. When you look at the driving times and the operating costs, it's actually not that big of a difference as far as driving time, because we were driving before in city streets and now we get on the highway and head back, and actually it's not that far of a drive when you look at the mileage. So in 2016, we actually began delivering our organics to them. We have an informal agreement with them. We paid the gate fee for our program that is required per the bill. And we have a great arrangement with them. We've had a great partnership with them over the years, and we have a good working relationship with the staff out there. And we met with them prior to the implementation of our program, and we managed to get into their use their facility so that our businesses could comply with the mandates. And like I said, in 2017, we began delivering almost over 90% of our garbage to them. And then actually in 2018, we started delivering our commercial and residential recycling vehicles to them. We had an arrangement with Green Waste, where we were delivering our recyclables to them. We had a partnership. We had a contract with them, and the contract was expiring, and they, for one reason or another, could no longer handle our material, or were able to accept it. So luckily enough, Monterey Regional had just finished expanding their materials recycling facility and needed some additional material. So we had a conversation with them, and they welcomed our material at a much better cost, actually. And we have been delivering them for the last 2-3 months, and it's been working out really good for them and for us. And actually, in March of this year, we also started delivering our cardboard to them for processing at their center. It's just they can do things a little bit more efficient. There's economies of scale. They're a much larger facility. They're designed to handle a lot more than we do. So it's just working out really well. But in the future, we need to seek a long-term arrangement with them. We do have one for the waste disposal, but we don't have any for the other materials. And they're actually wanting to do that with us. Their board is developing a strategic plan at the moment, and they haven't finalized it, where they're going to incorporate a lot of different business options that they have, and obviously business with us would be part of that discussion, but they haven't finalized it. But we're staying on top of it. We attend their meetings regularly just so that we're aware of what they're doing and to let them know that we're here and we're open to discussion. So how do we know that we're actually going to Monterey Regional is the best solution, the best decision for our community? We actually went and we had the same question as staff, and we hired a consulting agency named HF&H to look at this. They're experts in the field. So we had them evaluate different options, and they evaluated the option of us landfilling, continuing with the last cells in our landfill. We had them evaluate the possibility of developing our own composting program at the landfill, or the possibility of installing an anaerobic digester at the landfill also. And then also, obviously, evaluating the decision to haul our materials to Monterey Regional. And based on the current economic conditions, hauling to Monterey Regional is, according to their report, the best decision for us to take at the moment. And there's lots of things that could change, obviously. As you heard in the news, the recycling markets are changing as we speak, and China is impacting the world economy on this. So, but based on the conditions that we have set forth now, we should be okay. But obviously, I'm just putting that as a caveat. It's just based on the current economic conditions. That is the best decision for us to do, given the conditions and the where we're at right now. So now I wanted to move on to the Waste and Recycle Center. We've had a lot of expansion to our Waste and Recycle Center. I think we're really proud of this operation. It's helped us tremendously as far as diversion and allowing our residents a convenient place to dispose of their extra waste and dispose of those really complicated things to dispose of, like pesticides and paint and things that we keep on at our household that are unsafe for us to store for long periods of time. So we've done some site improvements to our program. We have new fencing. We have improved service for our residents. Try to make it convenient and easier for them to use, because as we're closing our landfill, we realize we also need to increase the level of service at this facility, because it's going to be it's going to receive higher demand as the community has their options to use our city landfill are limited now. So. Another new program to the Waste Recycle Center that we opened in October 17 is what we call the Treasure Corner. So this is modeled after Monterey Regional's Second Chance store. So staff goes through the materials that are being delivered, and if there's something that's in good shape that we deem it's reusable, we put it in a corner there and we sell it for a very nominal fee. And this has been tremendous. Actually, we have a lot of regulars that come and visit us, and people have said they found some treasures in there, as far as furniture and some paintings and so forth. Like you see a cooler here, we have different things. So this has helped us tremendously, because otherwise this would have been landfilled. These materials that can be reused, and our motto is reduce, reuse, recycle. So it fits in one of those categories. So we're really proud of that. We had to find a nook and cranny to put it there, to place it in, but we were able to move things around and accommodate it. So what are some of the large continuing efforts or endeavors that we're going to have to manage here? First, we're going to continue pursuing an organics project in this county. Santa Cruz County is looking at developing a program here for all the residents in the county and the cities to hopefully participate in. We have a committee as part of the task force that Mayor Hurst is part of, where we're evaluating the possibilities and see how we can design a program for our residents. Because Monterey Regional is a great partner; they're available, but we should always look at locally and see what we can do here and seek the possibilities for it's cost effective, and it just makes sense keeping the materials within our jurisdiction. So it's great that they're evaluating that, and we'll continue to participate in all those meetings and be partners with the county as we always have. The other major thing is ASB 1383. So it's a bill that was passed by the state, and it's the title is Short-Lived Climate Pollutants, Organic Waste Methane Emissions Reduction. So obviously we are already, from the commercial side, we're already removing that material from the commercial sector. But what the state wants us to do is to pursue it and increase it. So basically remove it entirely. So what does that entail? What's going to entail maybe new programming, door-to-door collection, possibly an organics cart at your home for us to collect and divert from the waste stream. The bill is very specific. They're working on all the requirements right now, when it's supposed to be started being implemented in 2019. But it's so specific that it requires us to use specific colored carts, like you see in this picture, a yellow cart, delivered to all the residents, so it's identified and it's known its specific use. It also requires a lot of monitoring, a lot of reporting, so a lot of administrative work, a lot of follow-up, a lot of auditing that goes behind it. Actually, our solid waste staff is at a conference at the moment in Oakland, learning more about the specifics, because the state's getting ready to finalize all the requirements, so we want to stay on top of them and make sure we understand what that's going to look like here in the city and what we're going to have to plan for in the future. and we want to stay on top of these things. We've always been committed to taking the bills, taking all these regulations, and creating programs, and not just sitting there and just pretending that it's going to go away, but just embracing it. And so I'm very confident that we're a little bit ahead of the curve on this. We've already have an auditing program. We have an outreach program. So a lot of jurisdictions don't have this, and we're very lucky to the fact that we own the garbage collection company versus many areas who contract it out. So we have oversight over our collections program, over the programs we can offer, and we're very nimble that way. So I think we're going to be successful. There's going to be some planning efforts and some investment in the infrastructure, but I'm really confident that we can do this. This is similar to the mid-'90s when we had to start diverting material from the landfill. So it almost smells and tastes the same, per se. And the other big thing is the recycling markets. There's a global chaos in the recycling markets due to China's, restricted policies on recycling. And so right now we're struggling with plastics in particular. As you know, in our commingled program, we take any plastic. In the past, we only used to take plastics with the number etched on it. I believe it was. Sorry. I believe it was
Please continue, Gabe.
Okay. 1 through 7 at the time, but we need to look at our policy because the brokers who buy this material don't want it, and there's no value in it. So we're actually diverting it from when it gets source separated, and it's actually ending up in our landfills. So we don't want to confuse our customers who are in the community. So we're going to need to regroup together as a team, do some outreach efforts to inform the community of the changes, because this is all affecting all of us. It's not just Watsonville, but we want to make sure that we speak to our partners, speak to our local, our colleagues here in the area, so our messages sound similar, so we don't confuse the community, and we deal with this matter. This is a little bit beyond us. It's kind of a national or international public policy that where we may not be able to have an impact per se, but we have to do something for this community. So
they're requiring it to be like 98% pure?
They're requiring it to be 98% pure, which requires a lot of work. In order to process those materials with machinery and get that cleanliness, it's impossible. You have to hand separate it, and that's very, very labor intensive. So, but we're going to stay up to it. We're upbeat. We're working with our partners to make sure we can change our program a little to make sure that we don't create any undue burden on our customers and on our operations, obviously. And with that concludes my presentation.
Let's see if there's any questions from the council at this time. Councilmember Garcia, you're first.
Gabe, thank you so much for everything that you do for us. 2 questions. One, AB 1826 is a mandate, correct?
Yes.
But yet on your page, it said voluntary participation.
So what we did is it's mandatory, but we didn't want to take that mandatory approach or carry that big stick with our businesses. That's not our style. So we in the past we've always used this we call it the voluntary approach because that's the approach that our staff takes when we speak to our businesses. So we're not in there being forceful where you say you must or you will or this is going to happen to you. We try to explain, communicate, and educate and work with them so that we can develop that good working relationship and say, look, here's what's going to happen. Here's what's happened. This bill was passed by the state. You are required to do so. Explain to them the details. But here's what we can provide to you. Here's how we can work together. What would you need in order to do this? And so we would get that feedback and come back and develop a program that would work across the board. So that's when we say the voluntary.
Gotcha.
We took it that way so that no one felt like we were going to go in there and force them into doing this.
Right, very good. Thank you very much. The other is you talked about waste methane emissions. I don't know what that is.
Okay, so our landfill, the materials that are buried and decomposed, and one of the byproducts is methane gas. So at our most landfills in this country, we have wells and we collect that gas, and some of us use it, like in our case, we send that gas to a cogen facility that takes that and generates it into electricity. So organic materials decompose at a much higher rate and are the #1 source of greenhouse gases in this nation. So if we effectively remove them from the landfill, guess what? Technically, the theory is that you wouldn't have any methane gases escaping into the atmosphere and causing global change, climate change, and et cetera.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions, comments from the council? Councilmember Bilicic, then Hernandez.
So you said we're going to have different garbage cans. Right now, I think we have two, don't we? And well, no, we have
Three.
the blue, we have the gray, and we have the green
The
can.
green one, yeah.
How many more cans are we going to have?
So see that, and that's a concern for us because
Well, it's a concern for people because where do they put them?
exactly. So you notice parking. So this is going to impact parking. So it does impact the neighborhoods and impacts our day-to-day lives. So we as a staff understand that, and we don't want to put undue burdens on our residents. So that's where we have to go back. That's where staff's now in Oakland trying to figure out what the best practices they're going to suggest. So we come back and maybe we need to change the way we collect our business practice, the way we do it, everything. I mean, maybe what we do is we collect all the material in one cart, and then in this yellow cart we collect all the organics, and maybe perhaps everything else in another cart, and we reduce it to 2. But who knows? It all depends on our partnership with the other agencies and how we manage it. Because it's going to require, if we add another cart, it's going to require another route. That's another driver, another truck. So a truck is going to be up over $300,000. The driver is going to cost us, I don't know, somewhere in the $80,000-$90,000 range every year from now and forever. So these are considerations that we need to evaluate as we're making our decisions.
When we roll out this project, one of the things I've heard too are the cans, for some areas are too big.
Yes.
Now, we have different size for the gray, the garbage cans, but not the blue, I don't think, and
No,
not the green. They're all one size. And so some people say, well, I'm stumbling over my cans. They're too big. So I don't know. That may be another consideration. I don't know.
It will be a consideration because as we remove certain materials from one stream, you actually reduce the demand for it. So maybe we don't need such a large garbage cans. Maybe we don't need, like I said, if we move to one commingled cart where we put everything but organic waste, maybe we can go get rid of those larger ones and have maybe one or maybe just 2 sizes. So these are the considerations we're going to evaluate, obviously.
And you said the plastic bottles. You don't think is that? Did I misunderstand you?
No, so hard plastics like plastic toys, things.
Okay.
But the bottles usually have a number, and those are usually what we call the high grade ones.
So they'll still stay.
Yeah.
People will be able to recycle bottles and cans.
We probably will. The only thing is the price of the commodities have dropped over the years, so we're not as valuable as they were, except for redemption, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hernandez, and let's make this quick because I know the public wants to comment on the consent agenda too.
So I know that the city was an early adopter when it came to recycling. Is there any chance that this organic waste, we can make money on it with conversion from food waste to fuel at some point in the future? Is there going to be any kind of grants that are going to be out there to create that?
So it's interesting. So the state's adopting these policies, and they're great policies. They're geared towards a great goal. But a lot of times there's other complementary markets that need to develop, and also investment. So, and then regulatory conditions, like for example, a composting program. We have an agency that will encourage us to do this. So, but we might have another agency whose regulations do not really allow for that development to occur as efficient and as effective, and so forth. They cause more costly. So that's something that I believe that our Sacramento needs to balance out to make it efficient, and so that we can implement such programs in our city. Although these volumes look big to us, they're really not that large to make something economical, so we can make money as an enterprise. We would need a lot more materials, perhaps at the level of being county-wide, having all of those materials come together. Then we could probably consider that. But at the moment, based on our volumes, we don't.
Thanks so much. I don't want to give solid waste short shift, but it is a regional problem. We need regional solutions. We need state solutions, actually. And maybe President Trump's visit to North Korea will open up an entirely new place for us to send our recyclables, since nobody else seems to want them. But one educational point I want to make is that the public can do a much better job in sorting their recyclables and maybe even using a little rinse to rinse some of their bottles and cans and such out so we don't have so much contamination. You know, one bologna sandwich in a whole load of cardboard ruins the entire shipload of exports. So thank you very much. We'll accept this report, and we'll keep you posted on integrated and solid waste.
Thank you for your questions. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Before we go to our closed session, let's hear from the public. If the public wishes to comment on anything on the closed session, this is an opportunity to do so prior to our closed session.
Good afternoon. Laura Segura, Executive Director of Monarch Services. I'd like to read a letter on behalf of nonprofit leaders, and hopefully I can do this in the time frame. On behalf of the organizations below and more than 40,000 community members we serve, we respectfully ask the City Council to engage in an open recruitment process to recruit the individual to lead the city into the future. We understand that cost is at issue and agree with the city should consider a cost-effective search to satisfy this obligation, consistent with current city department head recruitment processes. This could include 1, appoint an interim city manager. Number 2, set a recruitment process that is consistent with best practices, yet balances cost and time limitation. For example, announces through normal government channels. And number 3, includes a committee inclusive of nonprofit, business, and school leadership. One of the most important responsibilities of a city council, when appropriate, is to select a new city manager. And the city manager is the most pivotal employee in the city. He or she functions as the critical link between the city council, staff, and community. She implements the city council's vision, strategic plan, ensures city policy becomes reality in day-to-day operations, and those services are delivered effectively. The relationship between the city manager, the council employees, and the community is critical. And the city manager sets organizational culture, ensures accountability and integrity, and leads by example, promoting the highest standards of ethical behavior. The city manager also advocates and ensures good governance and effective and transparent risk management. Because hiring a city manager is such an important decision and impacts the future of the city and its residents so significantly, it is appropriate to be very deliberate. For the sake of our community, it is critical that a thorough, well-defined process be used to select the best candidate possible. Cities generally do not have to replace city managers very often and therefore have little experience in the recruitment process and can be uncertain about how to proceed. They may base decision on a past experience rather than on a best practice. A recruitment plan can and should be devised to meet the community's unique needs and to engender community trust in the city council's process, integrity, transparency, and its due diligence. So on behalf of the organizations below, we thank you for consideration of our request. Signed, Community Action Board, Pajaro Valley Health Trust, Monarch Services, Pajaro Valley Prevention and Student Services, Salud para la Gente, the Watsonville Law Center, and the YWCA. And I have a copy of the letter that I'd like to give.
Thank you. If you can hand that to Irwin, we'll have that for the record. Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wish to address us on this item? And I see 5:30 is rapidly approaching. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Maria Elena de la Garza, Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County Executive Director. Good afternoon. And I'd like to start off my 3 minutes asking Matt for permission. May I share our relationship and what we do together? Absolutely. So I'm a Matt supporter, and we have had the opportunity to work together on so many levels. And I want to share with you some of the levels that the work that we do that you may not know that we do together. For example, we have talked and had conversations around downtown safety. We've been county representatives in various committees. One with UCSC to talk about how do we leverage resources and support South County in their long-range planning. 2, we've talked about homelessness and how do we bring equity in distribution of funding from the county and pulling it over to South County. Number 3, we've looked at winter shelter, and there's just various levels of work that we have done together. And so I want to reiterate that I want to just say that this is not about Matt. This is about process. And at CAB and in our hiring process, we want to always make sure that we follow protocols and that we broaden the net to make sure that we have the right person. And so I'd like to share a little bit about that in terms of creating space for community voices, to create a committee to help the city council and to give input in the process of hiring our next city manager. It is such a critical position, and I believe that we have a strong foundation and we have a good relationship with Matt. And again, it's not personality and it's not about the person, it's about the process. What process does the city council need to follow, or what can we put in place that will address the concerns? We don't want to spend $100,000. We agree with you. We don't want to spend money on a recruitment process. We get that, because money spent there is less money spent in services. Right? We agree. We're on the same page. And so I think we can find a middle ground. Can we create an interim position? Can we create a community advocacy group to give input into the process so that we know that we are in alignment and we're all on the same page? That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council prior to us going to closed session?
Mayor, City Council, Gina Cole, representing Erica Padilla-Chavez from Pajaro Valley Prevention and Student Assistance. And again, we just want to reiterate the process. It's nothing personal. It isn't. We work really well together with Matt. We try and work really well together with the city. But there's got to be a cost-effective way to go through a process in this. It's the right thing to do from an equity point, from equal opportunity options, from the best practices standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Council, Mayor. And I want to thank Mayor Hurst and Rebecca Garcia, council member, for meeting with me about this also. I'm here on behalf of Salud para la Gente, also as a resident of the city of Watsonville, as I think most of the others here are also. And echo the sentiments that have been said in the letter and by my colleagues that have come ahead of me. And just really, and I know Matt has heard me talk about process as well, want to say that as city council members, you set an example for all of us and for the city of where our expectation should be in terms of making sure that we are following the best practices in the community. And there is no other position more important to recruit for the city in terms of going forward into the future in a time of significant change. And we count on your willingness and your commitment to take the time and effort to make sure that that process is complete and allowing for community engagement. We agree also that, and have experience at doing this with much less cost, with a focus on state or regional recruitment, with a process that is time limited, and hopefully you already have a great candidate in the pool that would result in a good ending. So thank you again, and we really appreciate your considering this request seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure meeting with you. Anyone else wish to address the council at this time? Approach the microphone, please. Seeing no one else approaching the microphone, we will adjourn at this time for our, or I will say recess rather, to discuss these items listed on our closed session, and we will return hopefully at 6:30, although we ran a little late, so we might be coming back a little late. Who knows? Thank you very much. We'll get started in just a few moments, so bear with us. Is council ready? Madam Clerk, are you ready? Good evening, and thank you very much and for putting up with our slight delay here. Good evening, and welcome to our 6:30 session of July 12th, 2018. That is June, isn't it? See, I'm getting ahead of myself already here. It feels like November is breathing down our throat. Let's first of all go to, thank you for the correction, let's go to roll call.
Vierases,
Present.
Kaufman Gomez,
Present.
Dutra,
Here.
Garcia, Hernandez,
Present.
Hurst.
Here. Thank you. Let's join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all. And let's don't forget our motto on the wall here, opportunity through diversity, unity through cooperation. First of all, we'll have oral communications from the public and then oral communications from the council on items that are not on our agenda. So this is the time for the public to speak to the council on items that are not on our agenda. Please announce your name. And, you know, I always like to kind of figure out where people live in some way, because if there's a constituent out there that I might not recognize from my district, I'd like for them to remind me. So fill out the blue card, let us know who you are, and please proceed.
Great. Good evening. My name is Nina Beatty. I am a resident of Monterey, and Watsonville is part of my community. You are considering, not tonight, but have been considering a revision to your wireless ordinance, which is delayed for right now. When I read your resolution, I was really shocked to see statements in there that you're preempted by state and federal law. Monterey is also revising its wireless ordinance, and you received a presentation, I believe, from me from Best and Krieger that they made to the League of California Cities Spring Attorneys Conference. It's very different than the flavor of what was proposed to you by, I believe, Telecom Law Firm, which the city is currently contracting with. Monterey previously contracted with Telecom Law Firm, but residents discovered a really major conflict of interest with that law firm. They also wrote a very permissive ordinance on small cell towers and others. Their attorneys basically said, well, there's really not much you can do about them. They didn't tell the city that they were involved in deployment of small cells in helping the city of Cincinnati and probably other cities in actually deploying these. So that was one of their issues of conflict of interest. It's a real contrast with Best and Krieger, their presentation. There was an uproar in Monterey. You may have read about it in the Herald. It's still ongoing when they proposed the first of 13 cell towers in neighborhoods next to homes and schools. There were yard signs, banners, buttons like this, which says "Stop the 13 No Cell Towers." There were 800 pages of comments. Monterey has now contracted with attorneys with Best and Krieger, Joseph Van Eaton, and 2 other attorneys. And it seems to me it would be really financially a good idea if cities such as Watsonville worked together with Monterey and other cities in the Monterey Bay region, and it would cut costs to contract with the same law firm to support city authority to the maximum extent possible to preserve our communities and our neighborhoods, the visual. In Santa Rosa right now, things are really blowing up there because these cell towers, once they started moving into the neighborhoods, and the city there invited Verizon to come in. These are what some people call junkyards on poles. And I drove through some areas of some neighborhoods in Watsonville this evening, and I was struck with the meticulous care that so many Watsonville residents take of their homes, their yards. I mean, the streets were just, it was amazing to me. I don't see that in some of my Monterey neighborhoods. Don't tell them I said that, but I don't see that level of care. And so for them to see this huge, all this clanking equipment would be very destructive. I'm concerned that you have 15 cell towers waiting, and I have a map of the locations of those cell towers. I forgot to say I have an overhead with shows the locations. It's focused on one neighborhood right now. When these neighbors find out about it, they're going to be very upset. So I hope that you will consider having another law firm that can preserve your powers and can help you stand up against bullying by the telecom companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming all the way and giving us your thoughts on the subject matter. Thank you. If we could have the next speaker, please.
Marilyn Garrett, and on the same topic, I like to think of our rights. You know, we were just talking about liberty and justice for all and how valuable diversity is. Justice and rights, I think of the traditional rights. We have a right to food, clothing, shelter, safety in our environment. And I've been here many times and showed this detection meter detecting the radiation in here. It's called an Acousticom meter. If we don't have a healthy environment, we basically don't have rights. And the fact that the telecom industry has been coming in and basically going everywhere with their radiation. I took the bus here today, and I'm at a bus stop that has this 4G technology on the pole on Freedom Boulevard. This is up to the top. You've received many articles documenting the problems with this technology, the health impacts, the surveillance problems, the fires that have been caused. PG&E's just been implicated in these fires with the CAL Fire report in Santa Rosa area. And here's yet another article that just came out in Newsweek last month in the tech and science section titled "Radiation from Cell Phones, Wi-Fi are hurting the birds and the bees. 5G may make it worse." And I will give you copies of this. And it cites earlier reports, concurs with the earlier reports of the damage. Now, Watsonville is such a rich agricultural area. We have to have that productivity. We have to have the bees. And when the bees are being decimated because of this radiation and the pesticides, we're in trouble. So I want to encourage you to stand up for the quality of life in this community and our rights to a healthy environment, attractive environment, and healthy and in support of nature. So here's the article. I thank you for your work, and especially thank Jimmy Dutra for speaking out on this issue. And I know the ordinance is supposed to come back. I don't know when, but it really takes community input and decision-making. So
Thank you very much, Ms. Garrett, and pass that on to our deputy city clerk, and we'll be reviewing all that. And let me just say, when it does come to rights, that usually gets settled at the court level. That's where we don't want to be if we can help it. So thank you. Could we have the next speaker, please? And welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jenny Sarmiento, and I live in District 4. I'm also a planning commissioner. So I have two items that I would like to request your support on. This last week, we had the Sunshine Development presented at the Planning Commission, and that was recommended to come to City Council for final approval. One of the things that I neglected to do was to encourage the developer to hire local workers, and I would like to ask that you request that from them, strongly request that they hire local workers. I don't know how many people they hire locally for the project that they're about to complete, but this is a great opportunity. It's 150 units, and I know that they're planning on doing it in 3 to 4 stages. That would really improve the quality of life for a lot of people that can have a job for 2 to 5 years. So that's one of the issues. Thank you for that. I would also like to request that City Council support the proposed Progressive Rail contract to ensure that over 400 workers who work in manufacturers of food products who use the rail to transport their products don't lose their job because they have no way to transport the products. That is 400 jobs in the community that could potentially be lost. And I believe that they will probably come and speak at the RTC meeting this Thursday. So please keep that in mind, encourage. It's not only that we keep the rails, but also that we sign that contract, approve that contract. Thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening and speaking. Do we have anyone else who would like to address the council at this time on items that are not on our agenda? This is the opportunity. Seeing no one approach the microphone, I'm going to turn it back to the council for their comments. Who would like to go first? Councilmember Hernandez.
Well, I just wanted to remind the community of a few city-related matters that are happening. One of them was just mentioned. Tuesday, June 14th, we have one of the RTC meetings here. That's Thursday, June 14th.
This Thursday.
The meeting is going to be here at the Civic Plaza at 9 a.m. here. It's really important that we get community input for this. It's an important decision for our local businesses here, from Del Mar to different logistics companies, Big Creek, different companies here in Watsonville. And the other thing that we have going on is starting on Thursday, June 21st, we have the Music in the Plaza happening, and that's always fun and exciting here in the plaza. And that begins at 6 p.m. on Thursday, June 21st. I think they're every other Thursday there, every Thursday of the month, I guess. And then other thing we have going on is, speaking of rail trail, is we're having a discussion about rail and trail on Thursday the 28th at 6:30 here in the community civic plaza. So if you don't know too much about it or want to know more about it, this is a perfect venue to attend. Again, that's Thursday, June 28th at 6:30 here in the civic plaza. And 4th of July is just around the corner. We have the parade coming up. Make sure you put that on your calendar. 4th of July parade is happening on Wednesday, July 4th, obviously, starting at 12 o'clock here in downtown. I suggest you go early and get a good seat. Some people post their seats overnight there, I've seen. And then after that, promptly after that, we have the 4th of July fireworks display on Wednesday, July 4th. That begins at 5 p.m. Again, I suggest people go early and get good parking. That's happening at the airport. And I think that one of the things that this is the second year for the fireworks. One of the things that this fireworks display does is it encourages less illegal fireworks in the community. People would rather instead of spending hundreds of dollars on illegal fireworks, people would rather go to see this fireworks display at the airport. So I hope it continues. I think it's good for the community, and I think it does lessen the amount of fireworks in the core of our city, illegal fireworks. The fireworks that people have at the little booths that are fundraisers for different athletic teams and booster clubs, those are safe and sane. They don't fly above 5 feet or go sideways more than 5 feet, and they don't make any noise above a certain decibel level. So those are two different things that I'm talking about: illegal fireworks and safe and sane fireworks. So thank you.
Thank you, former Mayor Hernandez. Let's go to right down the line, Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, I want to speak on three issues. You may or may not know that Watsonville High School requires all their seniors to do a community project. And in these projects, it's a variety of topics that they address, anything from homeless dogs to police and media. And what they have to do in this project is they have to identify a problem in Watsonville. They have to develop a plan of action to address a problem, and then they have to present results. And I had the privilege this year of mentoring two of those groups. One addressed the Summer in the City youth program that we're going to start this summer. They participated in a video advertising the program, and they compiled a survey of Watsonville High School students. And what was interesting, the very first question that they asked was, what do you know about the services that Watsonville provides? And 87% of them said they had no clue. The second group addressed rent control. It was three young men, and when they first came and met with me, they were so excited because they wanted to put on the November ballot a measure on rent control. However, I took them over to meet with our city clerk, and they realized that that would take too much work. So they went to Plan B. Plan B was they were going to go around Watsonville High School, believing that most of those were rentals, and just talk to people about their experience about rents. They went to 15 houses, and nobody would speak to them. In fact, they even offered $5 to one gentleman who said, "No, I'm too tired." So they came back to me, so we came up with a Plan C, and Plan C was that they did a survey of Watsonville High School students, and the number one question they asked was, does your family rent or own? Very few students responded that they own their houses. Most rent. However, one of the things that I did promise the three students was that I was going to pass out to all the city council members a lapel sticker that basically says that we are in favor of rent control. So hopefully you will be wearing this sticker around. At least they would want you to do that. Next, I attended a meeting by Santa Cruz County Ventures and UCSC Blum Center. They presented a county-wide study on predatory businesses such as check cashing and cash advance loans. And one of the things they found that in Watsonville, there's 54 such businesses that take advantage of our low-income residents who generally don't have bank accounts. So I have asked Matt to do some research on city ordinances to see if we can limit the amount of predatory businesses in the city. I understand that Gilroy has such an ordinance, and so I may be bringing an ordinance regarding this as a possible adoption. And Mayor, I have one more thing that I'd like to add.
Please go right ahead.
Finally, I'm a member of the League of Cities Environmental Quality Committee. Last week, I attended a meeting in Sacramento, and we addressed many, many environmental issues, but one that I want to bring to this council is the possible consideration in the elimination of plastic straws in our restaurants. We are aware of the considerable damage caused by plastic, particularly in our oceans. The committee did endorse Assembly Bill 1884 Calderon, which prohibits a food facility from providing single-use plastic straws to consumers unless requested by the consumer. However, I may consider bringing this to the council also because this particular legislation is very superficial, and perhaps if we want to, we could add more to it. And finally, I just want to say that there was a report on community choice aggregation where the Monterey Bay Community Power, of which we belong, was used as a model for others to consider. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kaufman-Gomez, please.
Thank you, sir. While we're loading up a little bit of a presentation I'd like for the community, I do want to remind you that I am your Regional Transportation Commissioner, and I will be up on this dais on Thursday morning and would like all of the people that are interested in knowing more about the 32-mile corridor and the contract that is before us for this particular vote. It's a very contentious item. There's a lot of information that's out there on this on both sides, on the pros and cons. And this is your community and what you want in your community, and it's really important that you come and let the board here know what you'd like us to do about that matter. The other thing, too, is 100,000 student celebration, and this is at Cal Beach, and this is the Odyssey, the O'Neill Odyssey. That event is June 24th from 1 to 4. I was able to take this out in the Bay Area here and learn along with the 6th grade students that were on board. And I believe we may be doing something along this line with either our Parks and Rec or our Police Activities League. So it was a pleasure to go out. And thank you, Dan, for letting me come out with you. And I'm hoping more of our students are able to do this. The clip that I have, I'm really trying to encourage the members of the community here that have anything of historical value, historical homes that they live in, to participate and contribute to the community in giving a little bit of a historical memento about your home. And this is just a clip a little bit about mine. My particular home was featured this last year as the only house from Watsonville that was part of the Blue Plaque committee awarded to show you what we've done in terms of maintaining the history and integrity of a home that's been in the community here since the 30s, and a little bit about the family that that inspired the home here. So if Erwin would please help us. Preservation is significant so that we actually have homes that tell a story about our history. And this is one of those homes that we have an opportunity to share a little bit about what the history of this community has been about. And it's been my pleasure to be able to do that and to take it back a step from the big TV sets that are, plugging the walls and whatnot, and bringing it back to the integrity of what it was when the family lived here originally. Our living room doesn't have a television set. There wasn't one when this house was built as well. But we've also made sure that we've updated what we needed to do for our family, which is to do a bit of restoration in our kitchen as well for the modernization and the efficiency. Everything that we've done here, we've done with a lot of pride because it's important that we have the quality in the house. It's going to be maintained, and that I just have a lot of good feelings for a home with this kind of character, and it's grown on us. We've been in this home for 20 years, and we wish to be here for another 20 plus years, and to continue to make sure that this house is well maintained for this neighborhood and for our community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. That was very informative, and thank you for stepping up and helping try to make the community a better place. Councilmember Bilicich, some comments from you, please?
Well, I want to thank you and our Vice Mayor Dutra for attending the adult education graduation. Graduations are finally over, and it's an exhilarating experience to see students and their families, and everybody's so excited. Now we're ready for summer school, and gosh, fall's going to be here before we know it. But it's great in the summer to see students too. They're making up units and still want to come back and be ready to go in the fall. So that if they've been behind in credits, they attend summer school. It's nice to see that. I also attended the Portuguese event. Boy, I tell you, they have a great time and ate lots of food. That was a couple of weeks ago. Went to Open Streets. Not as many people as usual on Open Streets, but still there were significant people there. We saw families riding bikes, walking. It was good. And then I also attended the Watsonville Rotary, their lobster dinner, and that was their first one, the first annual. Several people from the community were there. Trina was there. I don't know if anyone else. And of course, there are many people in the community were there. It was very nice and well done, and something different for our community. And I think that that'll conclude my remarks for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Dutra.
I guess by deduction I'm next, huh?
It's the math.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our meeting. Thank you, everybody at home, for watching. Just wanted to say a couple things. One is a few things that I've been doing recently. I'm on the board for Metro, and we just released we had some new buses. So we have an aging fleet, and so some of our buses are catching on fire. I know it's not something you guys want to hear, but we do have some buses that do catch on fire, and we are in need of replacing them. So we were able to replace a handful of new buses, which is great. They came in, and we did a ribbon cutting for it, as well as some new Paracruz vehicles. So that was a big event for us here in the county of Santa Cruz, because we've been dealing with a lot of issues with just really aging buses, an aging fleet. So I want to say congratulations to Metro for being able to replace at least some of them. I think we have 66 more to go. I want to say congratulations to Nancy too. She did the graduation for adult education, and that was awesome. I mean, just seeing these people who are coming back later on and finishing up their degrees, and some of them are already off to college and getting credits and stuff. It really says a lot about our community and a leader like Nancy, who's making sure that there's these opportunities for people to go back to school and get the degrees that they want. So it was very touching. This is the second time I was able to go do it, and it was nice to see that. And everybody's so excited. I mean, they fill that whole auditorium at Mello. So there's a lot of people who just need that special opportunity, because not everybody's meant to go to high school and finish the 4 years. Sometimes people have different paths, and it's nice to see that we have different paths to offer. And I also wanted to say, oh, you're welcome. I also wanted to say happy Pride. It's Pride Month, so I want to say happy Pride to the LGBTQ community. And I just wanted to end this. Today happens to be the second anniversary of the Pulse nightclub massacre, and I just want to bring up the faces that all lost their lives that evening. It's 2 years ago today that we had that tragic evening, and people lost mothers and brothers and sisters, and we're in America, and so for all these senseless gun violence acts, we need to stop, and we need to really think about what are we here for. And all these people lost their lives in one night. So I just want to bring that to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. School is out, but the students are still in the community. We need to watch out for safety. You know, the days are a little longer, and I don't know if they get up earlier, but they're out later at night. No homework to do, except for summer school. And I was really pleased to go to the adult ed graduation ceremony. I haven't missed one in a while. I was an adult ed teacher at one time, and so adult ed always remains close to my heart, and it's always great to see those graduates and particularly the new citizens and how excited they are to be a part of the community and engage in all the citizenship obligations as well as opportunities. And of course, that takes us back to Election Day, and I know the results aren't quite finalized, and the vote hasn't been certified in that way, but it's pretty clear that it was an election and that there are winners and some folks that came in second, third, and fourth place as well. So, you know, during the election season, it gave many people an opportunity to walk around neighborhoods and canvass voters and see what they were thinking and get opinions and also kind of look in their front doorstep and see what's kind of going on with them in many ways. And so you see a lot of parking issues. You see some issues with structural neglect of homes, and you see some really nice places too. You know, there's a lot of horticulturalists in Watsonville, a lot of flowers and folks that take pride in their home. And so we got to hear a lot of different concerns and comments, and it's a real learning experience. And so I suggest to anybody in our next election go around that has an opportunity to walk neighborhoods and talk to voters and, you know, see what's on their minds. I think that's, you know, an educational experience that I never want to miss out on. I did go to the greenhouse tour recently. You know, horticulture is always on my mind as a former horticulture teacher, and I toured the Kitayama greenhouses, and they also had the Gerber Fest, and the Gerbers are a flower, and the sale of those flowers went to the Santa Cruz State Parks Fund, and so I'm sure that they sold out on those flowers and that they were, the event was well attended. We did meet with the solid waste folks. In fact, we had a solid waste presentation on our agenda this afternoon, and the issue of recycling recyclable materials from restaurants, plastic straws, utensils. You know, there's no styrofoam supposedly allowed in Watsonville, although you see it on occasion. So I suggest that everyone familiarize themselves, particularly the businesses, about our ordinances regarding recycling and how to keep our recycling stream a little bit cleaner. I didn't make it to the Lobster Fest. They were sold out. I wasn't able to get a ticket. Next year, they told me to start looking earlier. Farm Bureau will have an annual dinner and a meeting coming up on the 21st. It's going to be at UCSC at their barn, and so that should be an interesting mix as well. Our police are going to be doing a badge pinning ceremony on the 22nd, in inducting some new police force officers. It was mentioned about open streets. You know, open streets continues to evolve. We want to promote bicycle and pedestrian friendly opportunities, as well as have an opportunity for children to get fitted for bike helmets. They received, the children who did not have helmets and had bikes, they all received a free helmet. There'll be an event at the airport on the 23rd. It's going to be kind of a safety test. The pilots have volunteered to do a simulated emergency drill where they'll fly around and inspect the Pajaro levees and the freeway overchanges and kind of get a picture of what it might be like during a real disaster to report from the air. In conclusion, let me just say there's some things we can do in the community. There's a lot of stuff that's beyond our control at the federal level and the state level. We should have input into that, certainly, but our voice is is small compared to many municipalities. But we can shop locally. And I know that's real tempting to buy on Amazon or even go to Target or a store and pick out what you want and then go home and order it on Amazon. That, that doesn't help the city like sales tax would. And so if you're going to buy a car, try and buy it in Watsonville. If you're going to buy anything that's substantial, hey, I think there's plenty of competitive merchants out there that, and your dollars stay locally and those jobs stay locally too. So shop locally. And fix up your property. We saw this walking around in the streets. There's a lot of properties that does need to be rehabbed and fixed up. And just today on our disbursements, we saw that we had worked with a person who had a lot of asbestos in their home, and they had a loan from the city, and we were able to participate in the asbestos removal, and that's a good thing to remove those kind of toxins from our community. So if you see something, say something. You know, use the Nixle for crime and suspicious activity. There's also a police hotline, an anonymous tip line that you can use, and you can see this on our website, as well as the direct police business line. What do we call that? Not the 911, but the
211
dispatch. And that will put you in contact. In fact, you can speak to an officer there if you really have an issue. So report crime and suspicious activity, report trash and potholes and shopping carts and things that really, you know, you're upset to see. Go ahead and call it into our customer service line at 768-3133 and use our customer service website reporting as well. You can see all this on the city's website under Public Works. Last but not least, let's wish everyone a happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. Let's celebrate that and thank a father. We're going to move on in our agenda at this time to the proclamation commending Cassidy's Pizza for their outstanding service and dedication to the community of Watsonville and wishing them much success in all their future endeavors. I think the Cassidy folks are here. Am I correct? And I would ask Felipe Hernandez to assist me in this since he brought it to my attention. You're not shy about this, are you? If we could have our friends from Cassidy approach the podium. Hello, how are you? So good to see you. Thank you very much for being here. You know, there's a lot of pizza shops in Watsonville, but not all of them get recognized, and rightfully so. But there is a big competition, I understand, for good quality pizza. And this proclamation reads, Cassidy's Pizza was founded in 1970 and is an outstanding family-owned and operated Watsonville business. Lupe and Tim Hamill have been proud proprietors of the Cassidy's Pizza for the past 22 years. They are committed to provide high-quality food with fresh local produce and cheeses grated fresh daily. And Cassidy's Pizza boasts 34 employees. Many of them have been with the business for over 10 years. Cassidy has won the Register Pajaronians Reader Choice Award every year since 2014. It has been also been selected by the Good Times as the best pizza in Watsonville every year since 2015. The Hamills have generously donated to all local charities, including Make-A-Wish, Toys for Tots, Jacob's Heart, and many other schools, sports, and community causes by donating 20% of their profits on given Tuesday evenings. We hope not missing anything tonight. Tuesday evenings between 5 and 9. They are understandably proud of what they have been able to contribute to the life of the community. Now, therefore, I, Lowell Hurst, Mayor of Watsonville, City of Watsonville, and the State of California, on behalf of the City Council, hereby commend Cassidy's Pizza for their outstanding service and dedication to the community of Watsonville, and wish them much success in all future endeavors. Congratulations. I'm asking Felipe Hernandez, who brought this to my attention, to present this award, and we'll offer a few words to the family, but Felipe may have something else to say.
So on top of having the best pizza, I think that I really wanted to do this because I think that you guys go above and beyond for all our local community. You know, I've been to fundraisers there from everything from migrant teachers associations to baseball teams to, you know, across the board youth soccer teams. So it's great to have a business that really appreciates and supports our local community, and I think that that's why, you know, I really wanted this to happen here today.
Would you like to say a few words?
Sure.
Thank you. You came all this way,
Yeah,
so let's make the most of it. Oh, we got a speech too.
Yes.
This is good. Speak right into the microphone.
All right. So first, thank you, Mayor.
Right.
First, thank you, Mayor, City Council members, for this recognition. We are very honored. Our business would not be possible without our faithful customers who are very faithful to us, and we are very appreciative of that. We are very fortunate to have our own business in a great community such as Watsonville. We try to make our business an establishment where families can enjoy each other's company and good food. We're also very fortunate to have hardworking employees, staff, who make it possible for Cassie's to function on a daily basis. We also would like to thank our manager, who makes it much easier for us to operate, the assistant managers, and all our staff who make it possible, our family members. We are very fortunate to have my daughter Kimberly and Michael with us here today, and my niece Angelina. This recognition today helps us to keep motivated and offering our best possible service, and thank you very much.
Congratulations, and you're right. It's the staff and the wonderful opportunity to do business in Watsonville. We appreciate the customer base.
Is there pizza outside? Thank you, Cassidy's.
Congratulations. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's our pleasure.
I just want to say how much we appreciate at the schools, too. You know, a lot of, you do a lot for our community, many community organizations, but a lot of schools use it for fundraising, and obviously community organizations. I know you're always out there with Sons of Italy, just a lot of different groups, and thank you for all you do in our community. It makes a difference.
I just want to say thank you too. You know, homegrown pop, you know, pizza places are great. You're my favorite. Your driver knows my house. Pineapple and cheese. I have the weird, I put pineapple on my pizza every single time, so that's always me when you guys get that order. But you know, I just think it's great that, you know, you guys have really, you know, taken your what you have, and you've really, you know, gone to the top with it. And I know that everybody in the community looks at you guys as like the best pizza in town. So you know, thank you for bringing that to our community.
We're going to do a little change up on the agenda here. We're not quite ready with one of the items, so we're going to start out here with our PERS item. This is item. I got too many double-sided pages here. This is public hearings and ordinances and appeals. This is the consideration of final adoption of the uncodified ordinance amendment to contract with the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS. We'll have a little staff report on this and a chance for the council to ask questions. The public can weigh in on it as well, and then we'll act upon it. And so we're required to do this for the PERS folks. We need to get it right. PERS wants us to go through a certain state-mandated procedure. So let's have that PERS report, please.
Good evening, council members. Very short report. Hopefully it gives you the time you need. 3 weeks ago on May 22nd, this item came before you, so this is the second reading. This is to amend the contract with CalPERS to implement an agreement that the Public Safety and Management Police and Management and Police Officers Association made during last year's round of bargaining, where they agreed to pick up an additional 3% of their retirement costs. You adopted a resolution on May 22nd with the intention to amend this contract. The bargaining units then went into secret ballot election. Of those who voted, 100% was to vote in favor of this contract amendment. We had nobody voting against. So if you approve this item today, it will become effective as of July 14th, 2018, which is the start of the first pay period after the start of the new fiscal year. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. This is the second reading, and it is kind of pro forma, but let's see if the City Council has any questions regarding the amendment to contract with the Board of Administration of CalPERS. What do you got to say on CalPERS? Council?
That we have to really watch carefully, because this is going to be a significant budget item that will be in a lot of discussions in the future years to come here with our budget and the impact it will have. And this is the first step of what we need to do to help that process out.
You are correct. It's a big budget item, and we need to approach it with the careful eye on the numbers, as well as protecting our employees. Everybody deserves some kind of a decent retirement, but we all have to, the employees have to help pay for it too. Any other questions for staff on this item? Seeing the council has no more questions, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on this item, please share with us your name and fill out the blue card, of course, and give us your thoughts. Public hearing is open.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. Steve Trujillo, member of the Personnel Commission of this beautiful city. I'm assuming 3% of that salary for every month for every police officer, therefore, will be added as deducted, I should say, from their pay, which will hopefully provide each police officer, if they retire from the city or from the state, of a police agency in the state of California, for their retirement. My concern is exactly how many people, or do any one of you know, how many people are we contributing to in terms of retired PERS members from the city of Watsonville? I would suspect that would be a considerable number. Does anyone have a round number, a round figure of approximately how many of those that is?
You mean how many people have already retired and are receiving PERS benefits?
Yes, would the city manager know possibly?
The question is, how many people are receiving how many former employees of the city are receiving PERS benefits? Would we know that? Once they leave the city, they don't get a paycheck from us.
Right.
We do know the exact count of active and retired members we have in the system. I don't know that number offhand, but we would be happy to get that for you.
That would be excellent. And as Trina mentioned, the PERS issue is significant in the fact that it'll be a major gubernatorial issue in the campaign. There are many who are politically to the right that resent having to pay retired public employees. I do not. I am also a retired public employee, having worked in 36 years in the California public schools and 1 year for the school district in this community. And I am very hopeful that the citizens of, or the residents of Watsonville will understand that you can't just hire anyone to work for the city, including the city manager. They have to be qualified, they have to be evaluated, and they have to be compensated. And we're not talking about minimum wage here, folks, particularly for any job that requires a variety of skills that require education beyond the 12th grade, and that's where Nancy comes in, because she tries her darndest and has all her career to get them there. And thank you, Nancy, for doing so. It's greatly appreciated. I'm hoping that the increased amount of sales tax and the increased amount of taxes that come to us through the sale of homes will be able to make up the difference and be able to keep our PERS obligations paid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public that would like to comment on this topic? If not, I'll bring it back to the board for any comments. If no comments, then do we need a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a first and we have a second.
Villacis,
Yes.
Carmen Gomez,
Yes.
Dutra,
Yes.
Garcia, Hernandez,
Yes.
Hurst.
Yes, and thank you very much. This moves us on to, we had a public discussion, we had the vote. Let's move on to, which item was it?
Item A, new business.
Okay, we're going to item A now, new business. Let's get all our papers shuffled correctly. Help me out. This is the strategic plan. Strategically, I don't have a plan right now, I guess. Strategic plan. Okay.
Budget, because in case we don't have time.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tamara Vides, Deputy City Manager, and it's a pleasure to bring this evening in front of you the proposed strategic plan for 2018-2020. The City of Watsonville City Council has worked on strategic planning since 1994, and it's a great way to reinforce our long-term planning as a city that accounts for operating and capital projects. This evening, I'm coming to you with a recommendation of accepting the proposed 2018-2020 strategic plan report that was included in your packet. Just as a quick review, a strategic planning for the council, it's a way to articulate the council's priorities and and guides their policy decisions. It enables city staff to develop feasible, actionable strategies to address the council priorities, implement policies, and allocate resources in a way that is effective. Can also focus the city efforts to engage community members and agency partners in achieving the city's mission and vision. It's definitely a roadmap for the future, of course, and this year, we had the pleasure to engage in a comprehensive process to develop the proposed draft that is in front of you this evening. You may recall the process began with one-on-one interviews with each of you in the council. We also held a strategic planning meeting in January 25th, where we had the opportunity to review past accomplishments from different city departments, and also collectively identify new strategies that the council wanted to focus on in the next 2 years. And as part of this meeting, it was suggested by the council that we engage the community and provide feedback on the strategies that had come up as a result of that brainstorming session that we held together. And that was an important step that was not part of the strategic planning in the past, so it was obtaining community engagement. And I have a few slides about how that process went. And after that, we developed a final draft, again, that is in front of you, including 6 priorities, which I will discuss one by one. But before I go into detail on the priorities, I would like to share with the council our experience doing community input process for this, in preparation for this plan. Over the course of the last 3 months after the strategic planning meeting with the council, we met with different community members and using a variety of methods. We had an online survey, and in that online survey was a way to ask the community for feedback on what they thought the priorities that were drafted by the council, what they thought were they important, somewhat important, very important to them. And so that was an effective way of kind of gauging feedback on where the community was with these priorities. We promoted that survey via social media, the city website, and we also published it on the newsletter. But we know that online doesn't get everyone. So we also went to the farmers market. We had some interactive ways of asking people that went to the farmers market on Friday, tell us like what you thought of these priorities. So we also did that. We held a town hall meeting here in the Civic Plaza community room. And during that meeting, we were able to share with those in attendance a little bit more details about what each priority meant, what kind of work was kind of established for each of the priorities. We've also worked with the Pajaro Valley Unified School District, and we shared the survey at a parent meeting with the school district assistants. But most importantly, we also held a strategic planning focus group with a group of nonprofit agency leaders. And that particular work was just really helpful in helping us really gain clarity and focus in some of our priority areas. And a lot of the work that you see as a result is definitely driven by our work with partner agencies. So I'm gonna just review the 6 priority areas, and just in order to work with time here, I just want to point out that the number at the bottom of the screen on the right side of the slide is basically the overall percentage of number of community members that participated in their survey or live feedback provided during the different meetings that consider that this particular priority was somewhat important, or very important to them. So the number reflected on the corner of the slide gives you that summary. So the priority number 1 is housing. And the city, this priority area has 4 focus areas that we will be focusing on in the next 2 years. But the idea is that the city will continue to work on expanding quality housing opportunities, preserving existing affordable housing for Watsonville residents, and reviewing housing and land use policies to maximize development potential. As you can see, 90.38% of individuals consider that is a very important goal. The priority area number 2 is fiscal health, and the city will continue to strive to enhance the fiscal sustainability of the city of Watsonville through sound financial decision-making to ensure the organizational viability needed to serve city residents and businesses of Watsonville today and in the future. And there are 3 specific focus areas under these priorities that were determined important. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen, 96.68% of those that participated in providing feedback consider this a very important goal. As a matter of fact, this was deemed the most important of all 6 goals of the council by those that provided feedback. Strategic area number 3 is infrastructure and environment, and in this area, the city will work to maintain
are build infrastructure, preserve the natural environment, and protect the health and well-being of the city residents through careful planning, preservation, and maintenance. And there are 5 different focus areas there. 93% of those that provided feedback thought this was an important goal as well. Strategic area number 4 is economic development. And there are 3 focus areas under that strategic goal. And the idea is to strengthen and diversify the city's economy for all by supporting and growing existing businesses, attracting new businesses, enhancing the workforce development, working on revitalizing downtown, and engaging the community to reinvest in the city. And again, it's a very important goal. And as you can see, also on the 90% rated as very important. A strategic area number 5 is community engagement and well-being. And in this area, there are several focus areas that you can see that are supportive of this strategic goal. The city will actively engage community stakeholders and residents on important issues that affect the quality of life of our community. We will work with all members of the community to create a more vibrant, engaged, and the word engaged was very important in our discussions with the community members in order to create a thriving Watsonville. And as you can see, again, over 90% of those in attendance. The last strategic area is public safety. The city will strive to create a healthy, safe, and thriving Watsonville through building relationships and partnerships with members of our community. And there are 3 focus areas in this strategic goal, and again, 93% of those that provided feedback consider that was an important goal. So what the feedback is telling us is that, yes, by and large, those that provided feedback do consider that the goals that were identified by the council are very important to our community, and that's reflected in the feedback, and I think I have a lot more detail in your packet. But I want to take a moment before I make my final recommendation to share with the council brief information as to some next steps that we feel are very clear and important for us to take, and also some of the lessons learned. We feel that the council should always, as part of the strategic planning process, evaluate past accomplishments, making sure that whenever a new plan is being prepared, that the information of the past kind of guides the decision making for future goal setting. And we know that this evaluation really helps ensure that core functions of every department in the city is taken into account when new goals are set. It helps us to validate that we're making progress in our work. And so for that purpose, the city manager's office, it's already engaging in preparing the tools that we need as citywide to engage in a strategic planning report. So when we meet again in the future, we have information on the past. The second is something I want to highlight, because it was something, like I mentioned earlier, that was not done before. The fact that we purposely engaged in feedback, in obtaining feedback from the community. And that was definitely a great process. But what we recommend doing in the future is engaging the community first, having those conversations with the community before the council, because those discussions with the community could really help guide your conversations when you are determining what goals are you going to establish for the future. So instead of kind of using the community as a soundboard, like just doing it the other way, let's just engage the community first and then continue working together on our goal setting. And with that, we've also learned engaging community partners is a key step of the process. Our community partners really helped us in this process to dive deeper into what those priorities really meant for service providers and stakeholders in the community, and could help us leverage resources that we have available between our partners, and the city. So we discussed how important it was to incorporate a visioning exercise as part of our strategic planning. When we're done, 2 years down the road, when this strategic planning is done, how is Watsonville a better city for all of us, right? So just kind of incorporating some of that exercise as part of the process will be a recommendation. And then just making sure that our priorities are guided by clear city vision and guideline principles. The strategic plan is definitely going to help us establish a shared vision of a vibrant and a sustainable community. So how do we do that grounded on principles and core values as an organization? So establishing a citywide vision will help us definitely guide our short-term and long-term goals. And the idea is just continue to work, city staff, city council will continue to work in collaborative efforts with community members, help improve internal and external communication, creating stronger partnerships with the county and other partner agencies that can help us achieve our goals, and provide more opportunities to engage our residents and key stakeholders. That's definitely part of what we learn in engaging in obtaining feedback from the plan. And so this evening, my recommendation for the council is that you adopt the proposed draft of the strategic plan for 2018-2020, and that you consider our recommendation as we engage in future strategic planning to make sure that there's that good communication internally and externally and engaging community stakeholders. So that is my recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the report on the strategic plan. Let's get some strategic questions here. Councilmember Garcia.
I first want to commend the staff in listening to the council in the direction we gave to have community engagement. I really appreciate how deep you went in terms of the different opportunities for the community engage. And I also want to thank the nonprofits that participated, because as you said, they helped you dive in a little bit more in terms of what this meant. My question, I only have one question, is what we are approving is the what of the strategic plan. What will the process be in keeping the council informed about the development of the how?
Yes, so the how is a continuum, right? The how happens as we all engage in our work in the next 2 years. So the idea is that every department, the way we have done it with the strategic plan in the past is every department, every time there's work to be done in the city, we will reference this strategic plan as to how is the work on the day-to-day work that the city is engaging in supporting those strategic goals. And in every staff report, you will see mention of how that work is supporting one of these goals. And like I said, it is our intention to come back to the council on a yearly basis and provide you with a strategic report on how we are supporting these goals through our work, through the investment of resources, the allocation, and the decisions that all departments are doing in order to advance these goals of the council.
Thank you.
Another question, please. Make it strategic.
Strategically, can we make sure that when we do get the presentations that we're referencing, so we continuously remind our audience here how whatever the presentation is affecting what the strategy is that we've put together here? I think that might be helpful so that we can keep bouncing back and forth on this and seeing what the patterns are, what we're doing with it, which departments are really inclusive in how they're putting that together for this plan.
Absolutely. That's a good suggestion.
Any questions from the council? Let's take this out to public input at this time. Anyone from the public wish to address us? This is the time to step to the microphone. And before you begin, let me just say that I think the priority areas are pretty well established in this strategic plan, and that it is available on our website, and the public can look at that and continue to give us input all the time. Thank you.
Steve Trujillo, spoke before. I'm a member of the Personnel Commission. We have a substantial number of mentally ill people in the city of Watsonville. Having lost both my parents to mental illness, I am quite familiar with it. Being a school counselor, I came in touch with it quite often, and including in this community at Rolling Hills Middle School. My concern is that we expect our fire department, our police department, our paramedics to be the first responders to deal very often with situations involving mental illness. What I'd like to know is who else is going to be trained in terms of city employees in order to deal with the mentally ill who encounter other individuals in the city of Watsonville in, shall we say, tenuous situations that might involve possible physical harm to either them or others.
Thank you, Mr. Trujillo. I think the simple answer to that is the first responders who we all call, and our staff members rely upon that special call to fire and police, and I know that our office staff at the counter has also been trained to respond to folks with unusual and difficult circumstances. City manager might comment on that. I don't know.
I would just add that you'll note that it is included as one of our focus areas within the strategic plan, and that work beyond our first responders will include our partnerships with many of our community partners as well as the county, and we look forward to continuing those conversations to look for creative ways to support those with mental illness in the community.
Other comments from the public at this time, please.
Good evening again. I'm Maria Elena de la Garza with the Community Action Board, and also a proud born and raised Watsonvillian. I just want to, first of all, thank staff, Matt and Tamara, for pushing this forward, to take the priorities that the council selected and then to create an engaging process. You could have just sped it through and we wouldn't have had a voice. And so I want to thank the staff and the council for slowing it down and including the voice. Thank you for that. I want to answer Rebecca's question, Councilwoman Garcia's question, the how, right? And just like you do for us, having us create measurable outcomes and measurable action steps, that's the how, right? We have our priorities, we create action steps around those focus areas, and we measure our success to see how do we move the needle. So that's my answer to your question, Councilwoman Garcia. And thirdly, I just want to say, and those of you are aware that Community Action does our Community Action Plan every 2 years, and 3 of your strategic goals, priority areas, are in alignment with what the most vulnerable members of our community have said about their needs in Watsonville and Santa Cruz County. And that's important. And so I want to say that the alignment is, of course, in housing and homelessness. It's in employment and needing jobs that are sustainable for families. And also priority 5, which I believe is health and well-being. The other thread that is in alignment to the work that the data that we receive from our community members is discrimination and racial inequalities. And although that's not called out, it's a thread in the conversation that we've had around how do we move to the next layer in terms of sanctuary city, and how do we really and truly embrace our immigrants in this community that make our community diverse and strong. And so I just want to thank again the staff and thank you for your leadership. It was a good process, and we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you very much. We do have a lot of work to do. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Becky Steinbrunner. I'm a resident of Aptos, but I'm interested in local government, and I admire the work that your city does in many ways. So whenever I can, I like to come to your meetings, and I appreciate your good work. I might thank you for this report, and I really appreciate your good effort to involve the community in many ways, the farmers market, the schools. I would also like to ask that youth be included in this as much as possible. So not only the parents, but the students. They are very interested in their world, and if we can engage them early on, it will make our world a better place. Regarding this whole process, I might draw to your attention the Santa Cruz County Grand Jury's recently released report of June 7th regarding the county's strategic plan, and it talks a lot about Ms. Garcia's question and how it is important to have measurable outcomes and frequent feedback so that you determine in a very transparent and accountable way that the goals are attainable and realistic, and that there is progress being made in a very transparent way. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Regarding the priorities, I thank you for this very clear presentation. Regarding the fiscal health, I thought it was interesting that rated the highest in your surveys. And economic development, I would like to ask that your city place a high priority on the horticulture. I'm a horticulturist too. And historic preservation. Ms. Kaufman-Gomez, thank you for that great video. And really look at what gem you have out at your city limits here with the Redmond Hirahara House. Although that property is in the county, across the street is the Tutt family's hotels. And if the city could partner with the county to restore the Redmond Hirahara House, it would be bringing in historic preservation. It could be modeled after the Emma Prush Farm Park in San Jose, bringing in horticulture. It could have Head Start, like Emma Prush Farm Park has, and bring in the community and create a really vibrant economic hub that would support the hotels that the Tutts want to build across the street and really honor the significance of the Hirahara House and what the Pajaro Valley did when the prisoners of war were released. Many of them had no place to go because their properties were taken. They couldn't pay the taxes. The Pajaro Valley people paid the Hirahara family's taxes. They had a place to come back. And that farm created a place for those who were less fortunate to come back to and get back on their feet. And that's what the barn is that has fallen into disrepair. So I would like to urge the city to work with the county and the Tutt family and really make this a vibrant, historically well-preserved place and a horticultural hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming all the way down here today, and we hope the traffic wasn't too bad. Could we have another speaker on this agenda item for the strategic plan? Strategic. Seeing no one else approach the microphone, we'll take this back to the council. Does the Assistant City Manager have any comments for the strategic plan?
I would just add briefly that we appreciate the leadership of the council and the support we had of our community partners in putting this plan that you have before you this evening. And we do look forward to coming back to the council on a regular basis with updates of what we're accomplishing. It allows us to anchor the work that the city's doing. There's always more demand for services than we have resources. And so this is helpful in doing that. And we look forward to taking on the next 2 years.
Well, thank you for those comments, and as you can see tonight, it is a work in progress. That nobody's got this dialed in 100%. But I've heard in the past that we want to have a strategic plan that's as specific as we can, but is general at the same time, so that all our priorities somehow fit together, and that we've identified these top priorities. But there's many pieces and puzzles that fit into that. Into the how do we do it. So let's hear council discussion. Councilmember Bilicic.
Well, it was interesting to see that fiscal health is like number one, and I think everyone realizes that in order to operate all the services that we want to operate, we have to have money to do so. And I think public safety is right there and you hear people talk all the time about public safety and, you know, are we safe in our community? We're pretty safe. Our police are pretty good. Our fire department's good. I mean, we have some great public servants right here in these jobs, and they're trying to protect you, our residents. I think they do a great job. We talk about traffic safety. You know, they used to have driver's training. They used to have that in the high schools, and they don't anymore. But we do have it at the adult school. So sometimes people come out, and it seems like we're pretty busy, and they have a lot of other people, private businesses that have driving practice. I think we need to offer that, and people need to do it so they know how to drive. We think it's simple, but, you know, sometimes they just kind of turn right and go. They don't always stop, and I think people need to think about safety. You know, we're getting kind of big to do that. There are cars everywhere. And then, of course, you know, the third fire station, I noticed that it's in the, someone wrote it down. It's in there, and I think at some point there will be a fire station on the east side. I'll continue to advocate, and I think whoever my replacement will be will hopefully do the same thing. Can't ever give up on that one. And then I noticed, too, that people mention the Bridge Street medians, that, you know, we need to water and we need to get them green, and you know, how come there are the weeds? And I think there will be a plan, and we'll be meeting with people out in Bay Village and Palro Village in the very near future to review possible new concepts of what could happen to the medians. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia.
I'd just like to move approval of the 2018-2020 strategic plan.
Second.
We have a second and a first and a second. The motion was by Garcia. The second was by Hernandez. Let's have discussion on the motion and any other comments. Councilmember Kaufman Gomez.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to see how much of that whole Survey Monkey is going on here, and let's keep that spigot open. Let people still continue to provide us with feedback and dialogue. It might help us with how we're doing our planning and checking in with us. I think that that'll be really helpful, because we should always make sure that there's a way for access for the community to weigh in and continue with the consensus on what we're doing and progress being made. The other thing, too, is the public-private partnerships. I'd like us to see a little bit more of what we can do there. We obviously have the involvement with our service providers that we really need in this community, and the business community in terms of where their feedback is in here and how they can collaborate and work collectively with what resources we really have here. Maybe better leveraging it with that as well for any of those arrangements, such as the Redmond Hirahara would be public-private. If there was any way that we can do a little bit of that, I know that they had made an effort in the past. So I think that there's a way that we can all think creatively and come together with something and look at these as projects that are viable, that may not tax so much on our city side, but may come with some of the business community that might be able to step up too to help us out maybe a little bit on the fiscal side. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Dutra.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, you know, this great job. This was my last class I took at USC, was strategic planning, and it's like a tongue twister all its own. But, you know, it just really says if a community organization doesn't have a mission, which will be the short term, or a vision which is long term, then that's when we fall into problems. You know, we become stagnant, we run in circles, we don't accomplish much, but we can clearly see what we're aiming to do. And after, you know, I speak to people all the time in the community, and these really align with what a lot of the conversations that I've had with people. You know, the issues that we as a council found as important to work on and to focus on are in alignment with the community, and I find that very important. So we're all on the same page. Oh, I thought Trina was saying something about it. Bless you. But I find that that's really important, that we're all on the same page. And, you know, over the next few years, hopefully that we can really start working on some of these issues. And one of the big things that I personally like, because a lot of times we can work on projects and, you know, we can do a lot of talk and things seem like there's nothing tangible. But if we can start making things that are we can see a difference. We can actually see that, you know, in housing we're we're making sure that we can see something happen in that area, or economic development, or health well-being. Like if we can point to things saying, look, this is what is in our strategic plan, and we're actually achieving it. I think that we can be like, okay, we nailed it. We were on the right path. So I want to say, thank you for having me involved in the process. I feel privileged that I was able to be a part of the the mission for the next few years of this city, and I look forward to seeing what we can accomplish together. Thank you.
Thank you, and I concur. I think we're ready for a roll call, Madam Clerk. We have a motion by Garcia and a second by Hernandez.
Birisic?
Yes.
Kaufman Gomez?
Yes.
Dutra?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Hurst?
Yes, unanimous approval. Thank you very much. Thank you to staff for their hard work on this. Not an easy thing to go out there and share with everyone and get input on. Thank you. Now, we have a choice here. Everybody could sit here all night and listen to the budget, or we could go back to the well, and the budget's important. You saw that fiscal health was ranked #1, or we could backtrack and go back to the consent agenda. We'll go back to the consent agenda. This is a time for the public to comment on the consent agenda.
I'd be delighted to.
Thank you.
I need to say something.
I would like to, if I may, I'll wait till you're finished with your discussion.
No, I think you can.
I think Alan was going to say something, but then you went ahead. Do you need
I was going to comment so that the public has some ability to
Thank you.
Comment on item H on the consent agenda, which is the city manager's contract. And we have a contract with a recommendation of approval from the Mayor's Ad Hoc Negotiating Committee for consideration by the council on this item. And I just wanted to generally summarize the terms of the contract. It's a 4-year contract with Mr. Huffaker. It recognizes that this is his first full city manager position. The contract calls for a review of his performance annually. It provides for a target, not an automatic, but a target salary increase as set forth in the contract during each of the 4 years, dependent on a satisfactory performance by a majority of the council. It has essentially the same benefits as anybody in the management group, with the exception of life insurance. He has a $100,000 policy as opposed to $50,000 policy for the rest of the management group. It has his duties are, and most of the other terms are the same or very similar to those of the Montoya contract, which was approved by the council a couple years ago, including residency, prohibition of outside activities, no outside financial interest. It has a 12-month for-cause termination provision. That means if the council should terminate his employment without cause, he would be entitled to 12 months compensation that's offset against any other employment or any other compensation he might get from other sources. Little different than some other contracts, although the 1-year for-cause termination is fairly standard in this industry right now. I think that is the substance of the contract, but I wanted to put that out there before the public spoke so that there would be an opportunity to speak to those general terms. We have a form of the contract available. The city clerk has a copy signed by Mr. Huffaker, And we have copies, unsigned copies, available for the public should the council approve this resolution. Concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. Let's continue with your public comments.
Yes,
Mr.
it was
Trujillo.
about.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
That's quite all right. Section H regarding Mr. Huffaker. I don't expect him, and do not take any personal umbrage, Matt. As a lot of us don't know you, people watching on television have no idea who you are. So what I would like, with the council's permission, is for Matt to tell us a little about his background and why he feels qualified for the job. And basically, just so we get to know him, since he's now going to be taking over for Mr. Montoya, who was a familiar face here for 3 years, if the council approves.
Thank you very much. That's the extent of your comment?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Thank you
for.
very much.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll hear more. Any other public folks that want to comment on the consent agenda?
Hi, I'm Ari Parker, a 30-year resident of District 7 and a proud constituent of Dr. Nancy Bilicich. Good evening, Assistant City Manager Matt Huffaker, Mayor Hurst, and City Council. I want to speak today on B, our Zone 7 Flood Committee, and the excellent work that it's done. And that body has especially been well represented by our own Dr. Nancy Bilicich, and greatly appreciated for all the work that she's done for the city of Watsonville and for all the residents of Watsonville for the past 10 years. There were dark days in District 7 for many years. I remember when my brother, friends, and I, in my younger days, would go out and we would sandbag in the middle of the night. We would sandbag in the middle of the day. And we wouldn't just do my parents' home, we would do the whole neighborhood because they'd be on oxygen and they couldn't lift things. And that was a normal thing, to the point where rain was not a happy moment anymore. You couldn't enjoy it. So I do have to say that the work that the Zone 7 Flood Committee has done, and is still not finished with, but the work that it's done so far has made the quality of life for those of us in Watsonville and District 7 especially pretty amazing, and great appreciation goes to Nancy Bilicich for all her efforts. I also want to point out that on June 5th, Proposition 68 was overwhelmingly approved for our great state. This proposition will make millions, maybe even, if not billions of dollars available for the creation and rehabilitation of our local parks, quality, water quality and supply, and flood projects. And I know that looking in your backup information, that Zone 7 Flood Committee has received prior funding through propositions. So it would be great if we could get our fair share for Watsonville from that. And it clearly favors disadvantaged communities, of which I believe we are one. So I thank you very much for your service, Dr. Bilicich, on behalf of Watsonville, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for your attention to this information.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. We appreciate anything we can do to alleviate the fear of flooding, and it was a monumental task to work with the Corps of Engineers. We're not done with them yet. And any catastrophe, of course, could happen, but it is a regional approach that we need to have as well. And I want to thank the ratepayers and those that are paying their Zone 7 fees. It protects us all, and hopefully that through that kind of protection, we'll have a lesser flood insurance bill for some of those residents. But it takes a village, and I know that Councilmember Hernandez has been active on the Zone 7 as well, and on regional flooding. They call these folks the river people, and
river rats.
The river people, and they've done a commendable job. So thanks for helping motivate the Board of Supervisors and as well as our friends upstream. Councilmember Billis, you want to say a word or two on this item on our consent agenda, Zone 7?
Actually, I was going to pull it, and I had talked to Mr. Palmisano to come and give us a quick little update on where we are with Zone 7. Public Works is, he's been instrumental, and his team has been instrumental in talking about Zone 7, and I meet with him many times before we go to the meetings and check things out, and I think people here do need to know, and I think they're very concerned about Zone 7, so I'm going to have the expert talk.
Good.
All right. Good evening, Councilmember Bilicic and members of the council. So Zone 7 is a special district that is set up to maintain, repair our levees along the Pajaro River, the Salsipuedes, Corralitos Creek. So every year, the city of Watsonville approves the Zone 7 budget before it goes to the county for them to approve, which is great because it keeps us involved, keeps us informed on what the money is being spent for. And the two main areas of funding really is broken into two main categories. One is maintenance of the existing rivers, which is very important, and they've done a lot of work the last couple of years, and there's a lot of work coming this summer through the Army Corps of Engineers to repair the levees, and I think that work's actually starting now or very soon along the creeks and the river, so that's great. That's very important. The other big piece of funding in the Zone 7 budget is for getting new levees through the Army Corps federal project, and so there is a certain amount of money that is a local cost share that is paid through this Zone 7 budget that we help supplement the Corps work through a local share. So some good news, the Corps project has been rolling along kind of better than ever the last couple of years, and about 2 months ago they ran out of federal funding. So I think today actually we learned that the federal budget for this particular section of work was approved, called the Federal Work Plan, and so the project can now move ahead once again, which is a huge relief to us because we were very distressed that it had stopped again because we have been through this so many times. But luckily, this was a fairly short break in the action, and we're going to be moving forward again with the design effort. So that's all good news. So I think that's kind of the broad brush of what the Zone 7 budget includes. And I am happy with the progress we've seen on the levees the last couple of years. It has been better than in many of the years before. So we are still not where we would like to be, but we are at least moving towards that new project. So
We have 17 areas on the Salsipuedes Creek that need repair, 17. And Steve and I had talked about this many times. We better hope it doesn't rain. It better hope it doesn't rain. It can't rain too much, not like the year before.
Right.
So we made it through until now, and here we are in June, and the Army Corps is supposed to fix it, and hopefully they will finish before the next rainy season.
It looks like they will.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're here. They
How's
were
that?
supposed to start, June 1st, and so here we are. They're out there, and so there might be places where you see construction or something going on the levees, and that's what it is. Salsipuedes Creek, particularly, 17 little places where they need to fix, and hopefully it'll be finished sooner than later. Thank you for your report, because I appreciate that. I appreciate your mentorship too with Zone 7.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's see if the public's got any more comments on our consent agenda. This is items A through I. Any consent agenda items A through I?
Thank you, Becky Steinbrunner, resident of Aptos. I often see Councilmember Bilicic at the flood control when I'm at the Board of Supervisor meetings when they meet, and I brought this up to that group. Floodwater can also be looked at in a different way as groundwater recharge. And I know that the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency is doing something like that at College Lake. And I know that there is a farmer, Mr. Kelly, working with Resource Conservation District to capture floodwater and use it as groundwater recharge. And so I want to just encourage you to think about that. It can also be a positive thing when it rains and there's a flood. If there are collection basins set up that can help recharge the aquifers, if it's done in a managed way. There is a researcher at UC Davis, Dr. Helen Dahlke, that's working with the farmers there. It was actually the farmers that got that going. They opened the floodgates and let their fields flood. And they've determined that it helped raise the groundwater levels. It was not injurious to their crops, and it was a sort of a pressure relief valve for flooding downstream. So I'd like to encourage you to think about that, maybe even have Dr. Dahlke come and speak with you. And there's also a local person, Dr. Andy Fisher at UCSC, that has mapped the county for prime recharge areas for this very thing. I'd also like to speak a little bit about Measure D, number D, and I'm apologizing, I haven't read the Environmental Science Workshop mobile thing, but I just want to bring to your attention that I'm working with Mr. Joe Dominguez at Pajaro Valley Unified School District. He's new, and we are working together to really highlight the beauty and benefit of the cliff swallows that are at Pajaro Valley High School. Rather than trying to get rid of them, we want to celebrate them. And I would like to invite your council to partner with Mr. Dominguez and me and the staff at Pajaro Valley High and bring that into the environmental science curriculum and support that throughout the community, because those birds do an amazing job of eating a lot of mosquitoes. Their story about migration is amazing, and the students and staff at Pajaro Valley High have been very depressed when the school spent $55,000 to try to exclude them and used water to continually knock their nests down. So thanks to Mr. Joe Dominguez, who's new and loves those birds and sees the value in them there, we're going to turn it around, and I hope that you'll join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the council on items A through I? This is your time to do so. Seeing none, I'll return this to, there we go. Got to be quick here.
I'll be quick.
And strategic.
Hi, Ari Parker.
Strategic.
Strategic and quick. Assistant Manager, Huffaker, Mayor, City Council. I really hadn't expected to talk about this, but I've worked for the school district for a number of years, and I've seen the work of process for the sake of process, where ongoing local talent has been passed over for outside choices. So in support of Matt Huffaker, I just want to say we need people who are invested in the community, and he has shown he is. He has established, excellent relationship. Raising your family here are trusted and well-liked, and sometimes you choose practicality over process. And it seems that the terms of a contract have a built-in review process so that at any time, if there is an issue, we can move forward. But for the sake of continuity and forward motion, I'm very much in favor of accepting Matt Huffaker's contract. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address us on items A through I? Seeing no one rushing the podium, I'll return this to the council for whatever they want to do with the consent agenda. We have did I hear a second?
Second.
I heard a motion to approve the consent agenda. I heard a second from Hernandez. The motion was by Kaufman Gomez. Let's see if there's more comments. Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, I'd like to pull G, accepting the resignation of Charles Montoya, and I'd like to make a comment on I, the appointment of Francisco Estrada as member of Parks and Recs Commission.
Okay, we'll pull item G. That'll be 9.1. And could you make your comments regarding the Parks and Rec Commission.
Yes, I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
have Francisco Estrada stand, please. This is going to be my new commissioner for Parks and Recs. And what I wanted to share about Francisco is when I interviewed him, one of the things that really made me want to appoint him to this position is that he shared with me that as a child growing up in Watsonville, because he's a native of Watsonville, he always took advantage of the Parks and Recs activities. And he became who he was in part because of that participation, and now wants to give back. The other thing that was interesting for me was that he was a student of Rolling Hills when I was principal at Rolling Hills. And because I didn't remember his name, that meant that he was never sent to the principal's office. So I just want to welcome him to this position. Thank you, Francisco.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor by, Kaufman Gomez, second by Hernandez to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item G. That's the resignation of Charles Montoya. We ready for a roll call?
Villasich,
Yes.
Kaufman Gomez,
Yes.
Dutra, Garcia,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Hurst.
Yes, and so approved. Now we'll go to item 9.1, which was the former G, the resolution accepting the resignation of Charles A. Montoya as city manager for the city of Watsonville. The letter is in our packet. Your comments, please.
Yes. Both of them are actually questions. The resolution says that the resignation is going to be accepted effective Wednesday, October the 1st, 2018 at 5 p.m. or the day before he's employed by another public agency, whichever first occurs. And so my question is, according to the minutes that I read, is Charles is going to begin in Avondale on the 30th of July. And so I'm wanting to know, is the day before going to be on Sunday, the 29th, or the working day, Friday, the 27th?
Councilmember Garcia, I've talked with Mr. Montoya, and once his resignation is effective here, it's my understanding he's going to contact Avondale and proceed to, and now especially that the council's on the way to appoint a successor. He's going to be on his way out of here probably in mid-July is my best estimate. And the way I set it up is his last day here, whatever that day is the day before he starts at Avondale. Now, he may be traveling at night. I don't know whether it's Sunday or Monday. I don't have my calendar out. I just ended one day and started the next day since he's not a Monday through Friday employee.
So what will our documents show? What date will our documents show?
Our documents will show the date that's in the documents in front of you right now, and if it turns out that he begins in Avondale, for example, on July 16th, his last day will be July 15th here.
Oh, okay. Okay. And you kind of answered my second question is, I wanted to know how many days he had accrued vacation and sick days, and wondering if he was going to take those days off, which meant when would he leave versus we paying him for those days.
I don't have that information. I'm sorry. I don't have his vacation. That would be a personnel question.
Can we ask that then of Natalie to give that information to us?
I'm sure that'll be provided to the council, correct? Thank you. I did see Mr. Montoya. He was scheduled to be here this evening. He had to go to the emergency room instead. He has a big gash on his head. He's had an accident, and he didn't want to come all black and blue and bloodied up. So,
well, in terms still,
he's not here this evening because he was in the emergency room getting stitches.
Well, in terms of that information being given to us, you had said earlier, Alan, that he may be leaving like the middle of July.
Yes.
And so that information will be given to us ahead of that time, hopefully?
I'm assuming that Natalie, the personnel director, is back there nodding her head in the affirmative.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I think all your questions can be answered and shared, and thank you for asking your question, and we hope that it'll be shared with all the council members. So thank you. So any further discussion on this item? This is item 9.1, which is the former consent agenda item G. Let's have a roll call, please.
Do we need to take a motion
Oh,
first,
yes.
or
Let's have,
see
I'm
if there's
sorry.
anything from the public?
Who would like to move that?
I'll move to take his Second.
Motion by Dutra, second by Hernandez. Any discussion on the motion?
Mayor, did you need to go out to public on that since it was pulled off of the consent, just in case?
Oh, I'd be
anybody
glad
from-
to. I'd be glad to have asked the public if they wanted to say anything on that. Any comments from the public? Seeing no one approaching the microphone, we're ready for the roll call.
Villasich,
Yes.
Kaufman Gomez,
Yes.
Dutra,
Yes.
Garcia, Hernandez,
Yes.
Hurst.
Yes. Next, we're going to have a report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mayor Hurst. The council received a report from its negotiating committee and gave direction to its negotiating committee, but took no final action in closed session this evening. And I would also offer that I've got copies of the contract, the Huffaker contract, I'm going to make available at the side table and for the press.
Thank you very much. This brings us to our next item, and let me say this has been a very challenging year as mayor. I've certainly had my hands full a number of times, and it's not over yet. And so let's move forward to our next item on the agenda, and if I've been keeping track correctly, it's going to be the budget study session, or do we have something in front of it? We invite everyone to stay for the budget session. In fact, those people that have already left, they should come back in.
Lol. Why don't we congratulate our new city manager? I think that's come on. I mean,
do that. Stand up, take a bow.
I might add too, if maybe there's in the future, near future, having a meet and greet would be nice for the public.
We'll be rolling out this stranger that nobody has seen before very soon. I don't know where some of you have been, but it's real and it's live here on TV. We're ready for the budget go round, and so everybody get their calculator out and let's follow along. We'll have a staff report followed by city council questions, a public hearing where everyone can have their say, and then the new city manager's comments and an appropriate motion, hopefully. Let's go to that budget.
Hello again, council members. Here to present to you the fiscal year 2018-19 budget. Today is just an overview. There's no formal action. This requires 2 hearings, so today will be the presentation and take any of your comments into consideration for any possible changes. And then in 2 weeks from now, I will be back up here to present the final budget, in which case you will take action on the budget and the trailer sort of legislation that comes along with this. So today I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of where we're at, a bit of focus on the general fund, talk about our capital improvement plan that is coming along with this, and some of the enterprise and other funds, and then just highlight the sort of trailer legislation that goes along with this. So the budget for fiscal year 18-19 is proposed to include $155.4 million of expenditures. This slide is a comparison to the previously approved or previously proposed 18-19 budget, which you approved in your 2-year package last year. So I'm going to be focusing mostly on adjustments and changes that have been made from what you already saw last year. So that $155.4 million is an increase over what was previously proposed, which is $146 million in total. The bulk of those changes come from capital funds that were not easy to predict last year that are now being included. On the general fund side, we're now proposing a budget of $44.8 million. and that's about $1.6 million higher than what was previously proposed as $43.2 million. Just a look at sort of the share of our budget by fund, by major fund type. You know, the focus always tends to be on the general fund, but as you can see by this, 42.8% of our budget, our total budget, is actually funded by the enterprise funds. So that's water, sewer, airport, and the landfill solid waste funds. The general fund only makes up slightly less than 30% of our entire budget. We have special revenue funds, which account for about 20%. That includes the major transportation funds, gas tax, Measure D, SB1. A lot of the housing and redevelopment funds fall in that as well. Another way to look at our budget is to look at what we're actually paying for. So I have this split in two ways. If you look at the entire budget together, all funds, we spend 37% of our budget on personnel costs. Non-personnel, it's 28.8%, and capital is actually 28%. I think that's a lot higher, and that's probably a number that surprises folks, because we do also talk about how we're underfunding our capital, but 20% of our entire budget is going towards capital projects. That picture, of course, changes when we're looking at just the general fund. So in the general fund, we spend almost 80% of our budget, of our general fund dollars on personnel. Non-personnel is about 16%, and capital is this very small little 3%. So why is that? And of course, that is based on what the two different types of funding sources, the departments that they support. So by department, if we're looking at all funds, Public Works is the largest share of our city's budget. It is 55%. And of course, Public Works has all that capital money and all those capital projects, which is why on the all fund summary, you can see that capital is a large share of our expenditures. Of course, on the general fund side, the bulk of our budget, nearly 20% or 60%, is going towards public safety. And of course, that's why 80% of our budget is on personnel costs, because public safety is a very personnel-intensive endeavor, as is general government and administration, which makes up another, between general government there and my department, finance, makes up another 16% of our general fund budget. So the things that we're paying for out of our general fund tend to be more personnel-driven parts of the needs of the community. So now to talk about some of the changes that we're making in the general fund. And again, this is a comparison to what was previously proposed in the previous 18-19 budget. We have, as I mentioned earlier, $1.6 million in changes. Quite a bit of that is actually going towards capital, $1.2 million, and that's in the form of new capital expenditures, down sort of near the bottom there, the $571,000, and almost $775,000 that's being carried forward. So those are capital projects that were previously appropriated but not yet finished. A lot of that has to do with the mid-year capital that this council approved. When things were approved in February, it often takes a long time for capital sort of get going. So much of that money is actually going to be carried forward to the next year. Some other changes to highlight are in our information services department. We are increasing some dollars for hardware, licensing, and personnel in that department. Information services has been sort of chronically underfunded and understaffed for many years. It is a holdup for many of our other departments to get projects done that they would like to get done. So we are making an effort to make sure that this department can do what it needs to do next year. My department is also getting an extra personnel, some extra money. That is because we are sort of restarting. There's a couple things going on. We are restarting our Munis ERP system implementation, which is a continuation of our financial system replacement, which was done a couple of years ago. That, in addition to planning for some major upcoming retirements, my department needs some flexibility to be able to make sure we can get these things done. You've noticed that that is listed as one time. So my goal as finance director is to use a staff person to give us the flexibility we need to implement the changes we need in the next couple of years. And then when times get harder, again, as we saw in the 5-year forecast, be able to reduce my staff back down to the current level. We are giving a little bit of contract money to the Community Development Department to help them take on some legal work that their planning staff is doing now, frees up some of their time. And again, so that is, it's one time to kind of fill a bubble of a need of a backlog that they're dealing with right now. We are increasing money to homeless services based on input from the county and from our county collaboration on dealing with homeless problems. The streets money that is being increased, this is to ensure that we are meeting our maintenance of effort requirement for SB1 money. SB1 requires that the general fund maintain a maintenance of effort that is the average of 3 different fiscal years. Our maintenance of effort number is $690,000. So we needed to add some more money in that division to make sure we meet that. When we meet that, we get back nearly $900,000 in capital expenditures. So it's well worth the investment. As I mentioned, we are sort of restarting and reinvigorating our Munis implementation. This is our citywide ERP system that has sort of been on hold since my predecessor left. And then capital, as I mentioned, we'll talk about more later when we get to a capital plan discussion. And then this last item is small, but it's something that Bill and I think are very proud of. We're carving out a little bit of money to make an extra payment toward the city's unfunded actuarial liability towards CalPERS. This $100,000 payment, in combination with some enterprise contributions, will be about $150,000, which over 30 years is actually going to yield the city over $1 million in savings. So this is being, you can see that a lot of these, we made a very concerted effort this year to make sure that we were funding one-time changes and not increasing the operational size of the city's budget. So of the $1.6 million in changes, actually more than that was in one-time changes. The ongoing changes that we made, we were actually able to fund with ongoing savings. So the savings that we have here are twofold. One, it is the implementation of that PERS 3% give back that you just approved. And then it's actually being funded by, as we have turnover in the city, and we're having staff that are leaving the city who were at Tier 1 high rate retirement plans and being replaced by PEPRA and some of the lower tier plans, and also being replaced by folks at lower steps. That is yielding us some personnel savings that we are using to reinvest in other ongoing changes. But we're keeping our ongoing operational budget sort of flat. Moving on to revenues. On the general fund side, we're again expecting a peak year. We have been steadily increasing, since 2015, where we reached our prior peak. The prior peak was 2008. So we had 7 years where we were not, where we were below 2008 levels. Since then, we've been going up. So this year in 2019, we're expecting to keep going up. We're projecting $1.1 billion in revenue in addition to the jump that was already proposed last year. Our general fund revenues, nearly half, as you can see, are made up of 2 different sources, sales tax and property tax. So it is no surprise that that is where we're seeing our increase and where we're projecting our increase. We are projecting to have a sales tax increase of $400,000 and property tax of $300,000. Sales tax, as we talked about during the 5-year outlook presentation on May 22nd, right now, the last few quarters, that has been really fueled by car and construction materials. So while we're seeing that, we want to take advantage of that It's also something that we're watching because we're not sure it's sustainable at the rate of increase and at the levels that it's going at. Property tax, we're seeing this county-wide. We got word from the county to expect 4% property tax increases in the last year. We're also including some amount of assumption that the developments that are happening around town are going to come online, and that we will get the benefit of sales of those new units. We've also seen some steady increase in our hotel tax, so we're including an extra $100,000 of increase there. We're also in next year's, in 2020, we're expecting to see that we're adjusting that up even higher, because that is when we expect some of the new hotels to go online. Just a reminder of what we talked about the last time I was here. This is just a little reminder of our 5-year outlook. We are able to balance the fiscal year 19 budget in a good way, but pretty quickly in fiscal year 19, we're projecting about $1 million deficit, slightly less, $900,000. And that continues to increase by $700,000 to $800,000 each year. That's primarily driven by CalPERS. But this is why, as you saw earlier, we're making really concerted efforts to make one-time changes to make sure that we are funding down, actively working towards paying down our unfunded liability, and why we're not growing the operational size of our budget, because we know we're going to have some changes that we're going to have to make in coming years. Move on to a happier topic, to talk a little bit about the capital improvement plan. Again, we like to talk a lot about that we're not spending money on capital. We're not spending as much money as we would like on the general fund on capital, but overall, our 5-year capital improvement plan shows that we're requesting $22.2 million in appropriations in 18-19. In the overall 5 years, we're requesting over $109 million in capital funding. We are making significant investments in our community. On the general fund side, we are proud to be finally putting some money into general fund capital after a long hiatus. Of course, it's not nearly what we would like. When we went out to departments to request general fund projects, we received over $20 million in requests back. Clearly, that's not something our general fund can afford at this point. We did go through quite a lengthy process of trying to whittle that down and come up with between $550,000 and $600,000 of planned projects for the next 5 years. That process involved putting together a committee, which included representatives from each of the departments that were requesting funds, myself and Bill here from the finance department, and then Public Works is engineering and maintenance, the folks that actually maintain the facilities. So that committee went through a process of first determining how we were going to prioritize projects. So we came up with this list of priorities that's here for on the slide. This would be things like, does the project decrease a liability? Does the project supplement some other funding sources so that we're getting more bang for our buck? So we first went through a process of determining how we would prioritize project and what we would use as ranking. Each department then went through and assigned a number to the project, and then based on that number, we came back and as a committee discussed each project qualitatively, because there's even within what would be considered high priority projects, there were more high priority projects than we could possibly afford. Because the city has sort of underfunded this for so long, the need is just really high. So what we're actually funding on the general fund is really kind of basic needs. It's roof repairs, it's termite repairs, it's replacing vehicles that are kind of an embarrassment to be driving around and really cost more to repair than they're worth. But we're starting to whittle away. And if you look at the 5-year plan, by the time you get into the later years, we actually are starting to look at some bigger, more encompassing projects. At the beginning, the first few years, it's really just kind of routine maintenance that we need to catch up on. So some of the projects, I've listed a bunch of the types of projects that are included in the plan. For the Parks Department, the Parks was really highly supplemented by CDBG money, which is very lucky for us. It includes projects to actually put some permanent bathrooms at the City Plaza, as I mentioned, some vehicles, and then replacing some of the public's facilities. Public Works, right here I'm talking about our facilities maintenance. It includes some of the garage repairs, HVAC upgrades, things like that. The Police Department is finishing the remodel of the women's locker room, dealing with some HVAC issues, adding some more money from Measure G to the body-worn cameras project, and then addressing some PAL facilities. Transportation is being funded by a gas tax, SB1, and Measure D, a combination of those three sources. And you'll see in the plan that a number of these projects actually are receiving funding from all three different sources for different phases of the projects. And these are really exciting projects because it's improvements to paving, curbs, signage, bike lanes, sidewalks, ADA improvements, curbs. This is really what's going to make our community look shiny and new. Then at our enterprises, we have the airport is doing some parking lot construction, some runway repairs and extensions. Much of the airport's capital improvements are supplemented by the FAA, and so they work in conjunction with them. And then, of course, sewer and water are doing a lot of meters replacement, pipes, equipments, such like that. Sewer also has a big project coming down for the replacement of their headworks. That project is also probably going to be bond funded to help smooth out the cost of that for the ratepayer so that it's not a rate shock. Solid waste and landfill you heard a lot about earlier, but a lot of that closure and some of the equipment and things are also included in our CIP plan. A quick reminder here of where we're at with Measure G. In fiscal year 18-19, it's projected to bring in $3.9 million of revenues to support the police and fire department. That is supporting 12 positions at the police department and 8 at the fire department, as well as a number of capital projects for both departments, including vehicle replacement. Both departments are still building up their reserves to pay for future capital projects. For the fire department, that's primarily paying down the truck that was just ordered. The other funds here, this is the enterprise funds. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. Sorry, Steve. But they all are sort of operationally maintaining sort of a status quo. There's not a ton of changes. There's a couple of personnel being added across the public works, but 3, I think, between all of the enterprise funds. You'll see that all of these funds are projecting to spend more money than they have coming in. The bulk of that is actually carry forward money. So again, that's money that was appropriated for capital projects this year that wasn't spent that we're going to be carried fund through. And so we are projecting all of them to still end the year with healthy cash balances. The sort of trailer legislation that you'll see coming through next week include our GAN limit to assure the public that we are not spending more than what the GAN limit says we can spend. Our property tax levy rate, continuation of the voluntary time off program, the airport fees. This is actually Rayvon's request to not have his fees increase by CPI annually. He went through, I think you all know, a really intensive process the last few years to get his fees up to market rate. And based on working with the FAA and their funding of a lot of our projects, he needs to still stay sort of market-based. And so he wants the freedom to be able to do market analysis before fees get increased and not have them automatically increased by CPI. And then there's a couple of pieces of authorizing legislation that come forward based on your role as the successor agency and approval of the use of housing and redevelopment funds. Finally, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge a few people. So one is Sylvia Diaz from Public Works, who did a lot of heavy lifting on putting together the capital plan. I want to thank Patricia Rodriguez from my department, who does all of our personnel and CalPERS projections. It's quite a heavy load. I want to thank the amazing Mr. Bill, who kind of knows and does everything.
Here.
And I also want to thank my entire department. I think the finance department is often unacknowledged, and everything that happens in this city goes through to my department in one way or another, often several times. My staff work really tirelessly to make sure that all the money is collected and spent in a very responsible way. Money makes the world go round, and the finance department really keeps Watsonville turning, and so they don't hear thanks often enough, so I want to thank them. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know we have representatives from every department here to also answer your questions.
Well, thank you very much for a pretty smooth report here. We'll be looking at this again, but anyone who comes to visit me, this is mandatory reading, and they have to do their homework and write a report, too. We'll take comments and questions from the preferably from the council at this time. Then we'll hold a public hearing where you can we'll collect the public's comments as well. Questions for staff on the budget view. Councilmember Garcia.
First, I want to thank you because I sent you a long list of questions and you were very prompt in responding to them. And so thank you for that. But I still have 3 questions I'd like to ask. One, on page 14, and by the way, for those that may not know, this is our budget
draft.
Thank you. And in addition to the budget draft, we also have a capital improvement program, which was an additional 230-some pages. Okay. So on page 14, there's a 203,259 difference on P and CS. My question is, what impact will this have on parks and community service?
Okay, so Councilmember, you're talking about the estimate of cannabis tax for the Parks Department, and I will say what we've done with cannabis for this year's budget is, again, it continues to be frozen because we are not seeing the level of revenues that were previously budgeted. So for the majority of the departments, we left the budgets, frankly, as they were last year, and it continues to be frozen. So the revenues are still budgeted, and so are the expenditures, but it is frozen and departments are expected to not spend. The Parks Department requested a more accurate estimate, and so I worked with them to actually give them a more realistic estimate of the money that we think will come in. And so that's why you're seeing a decrease in theirs, because it's going from what was previously budgeted to what we think we might actually get. They wanted a more accurate estimate because they have some staffing decisions that were based on that, and so we wanted to work with them and give them the flexibility. With the other departments, my plan is to work with departments quarter by quarter and looking at where we're at with our cannabis revenues and sort of releasing the hold and the freeze as we see money start coming in. Some of the departments have deficits that they have to pay down for that funding because spending happened before the freeze was put in place. So we're going to be working with departments one by one to sort of look at where their funding is at and what they're able to spend on.
Okay, thank you. On page 25, please explain the Chromium reimbursement loan and the $15,300,000 difference. Page 125.
Sorry, I was looking at 125.
It talks about the Chromium reimbursement loan.
The Chromium.
Mm-hmm.
So the Chromium project, and Steve will jump up if I say anything wrong, but the Chromium project is still on hold and we're awaiting a decision from the state. The decision might come down in December. So until then, We have left some seed money in here, so in case the decision comes down that we have to go forward with this project, we have money for design and engineering to start that project going. But if you look later in our capital plan in the back of the book and in the capital plan document, that project has now been moved out, the full project, until I think 21, 22.
And so let's say that the decision is made that we no longer have to have this treatment. We raised our utilities rates based on that.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen if we don't need the money for?
That's where I'll let Steve jump in.
Okay.
Hello, Councilmember Garcia, members of the council. That's a great question, and I don't exactly know when we will get the answer from the state on this particular issue. It's maybe this year, maybe in a year. So in the meantime, the way we structured our rates was to pay for the Chrome 6 project, which was going to be about a $20 to $25 million project. And to do that, we were going to take a low-interest loan from the state. And so that's what you see here. That's this big revenue stream. And if we don't need to do the Chrome 6 project, the good news is then we won't have to go into debt $20 million. And so the money we have generated through the rate increase will be used for other infrastructure projects, and we have plenty. As you saw on the list, there are tens of millions of dollars of water projects, water infrastructure projects that we need to do, water line replacements. We need 2 new wells that are currently under design. That'll be a $6 million project right there. So my hope is that we could maintain that rate increase and pay cash for some of our significant infrastructure projects, or at least not go into $20 million in debt for these projects. Instead, maybe do like a $5 million state loan or something smaller to cover a smaller but more essential and critical infrastructure projects for the community.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let me also point out that our water rates are some of the lowest in the area.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I'm very much aware of that. My final question is, this is on the Capital Improvement Program, page 194. It's going to cost us a total of $7,800,000 to close our landfill. How are we paying for that?
So we have a lot of that money already saved in a closure fund. About $3 million of it is saved in our closure fund. And so probably the difference between what's in the closure fund and the actual cost of the closure of the construction will be a low interest loan or a bond, most likely. We also hope potentially by that time we get to construction, because it is a few years out. We may have enough money in our closure fund to just pay for the closure completely. We also believe that we're currently refining our cost estimates on the closure of the landfill, and we think it may come in closer to $5 million. And so we think by the time we actually close the landfill, we may be there and may not need to finance it. So.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you very much. Councilman Kaufman. Oh, I think Dr. Bilasevich is next.
Go for it.
Are you ready? Or you want to pass?
I can go. You had a slide about those restrooms, and there was one in the plaza. Can you pull that back? Right there. So, in reference to Ramsey Park, I thought we did those already.
Yeah, so the general fund capital plan includes $50,000 for the gap funding. So the majority of the bathrooms at the back of Ramsey Park were funded by CDBG, and we're just a little bit short. And so the capital fund, the general fund, is filling in the gap for the Ramsey bathrooms. The City Plaza bathrooms are also, it's a new project, again, being funded under CDBG.
And the City Plaza is, what does that mean? Are those portables, or are we going to build real ones?
They're for a permanent bathroom structure.
We're going to put permanent ones in there? Where? I haven't seen a plan. Have you?
Good evening, Council. Tamara Vides. The idea is to engage the community in a redesign of the city plaza, and one of those elements we know that we need is installation of permanent bathrooms to substitute the eyesore that our porta potty is in that area of the plaza. So later this year, the council will have an opportunity to work with us in engaging in community input in how the plaza is going to look when those bathrooms are designed. And we were fortunate enough to be able to get CDBG funding this year in planning for that future work. But the design is not yet done. Is future work.
So the redesign of the plaza, what is that going to entail?
I'm not sure what that's going to entail. It's going to entail a lot of work with our community and with the council to make sure that we have input and we look at what are some of the features that our city plaza will need in order to serve the community today.
And Councilmember Bilicic, if I could just add to that, I know the council has seen the many events we've started to expand in the plaza and create it as more of a safe community gathering place. We started the summer concert series last summer. We're going to be bringing that back again this summer. And as we look at the plaza and the usable space within the plaza, we're trying to look for more opportunities for kids to utilize that space, for families to utilize that space. The restrooms is the first piece of it because it's the biggest eyesore and the one we get the most complaints about. We don't know the full answer to it, but we do think there's untapped potential there. And Watsonville's plaza really is a gem of the downtown.
Historic.
And historic. And so we have to balance that. And this work will be doing that in a way that preserves the history of the plaza as part of that work.
So you're not talking about necessarily removing any structures?
No, not necessarily.
Well, I mean, you have the fountain, you have the bandstand. I mean...
The significant historical structures that are in the plaza today would remain.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure we'll have to look at where the historic sewer line lies in the plaza as well. Let's go to further questions. Councilmember Kaufman Gomez, it is your turn.
Thank you, Mayor. There was one slide, and I don't have a number on the bottom, but it had an other bucket with no value on it, and it was previous to this. It was the very last item that said other with nothing on it. There you go. Hotel taxes of 102. What is this other on the revenue changes?
So there are a lot of different revenue changes that were happening. So there's 300,000 or so that if you add up the sales, property, and hotel that I've highlighted here, there's about $300,000 that are missing to get to that $1.1 million change.
I see.
So some of that is we increased our market rate lease.
So you have about $200,000 that comes from.
Some of it's coming from departmental revenue streams. Some of it's coming from other lease agreements and smaller like franchise fees and a little bit in utility tax. So there's that gap is made up by a whole bunch of different other smaller changes in the revenue sources.
I perked up a little bit when I heard the word bond. Can you talk to us about going to bond on certain items?
So the only item that we're talking about bonding in the current year or in this budget year is the Headworks project for the sewer department. So that's a major $4 million project where I think it is essentially like building a whole new intake part for our sewer headwaters. It's going to be built alongside of the existing one, and once it's done, it will have to be reconnected. So it's a major capital investment that it just wouldn't be appropriate to cash fund with the sewer fund right now, based on where their cash balances are. So we're actually just starting engaging with a financial advisor, meeting with them later this month to talk about what the bond process would look for that process. But that's again, if we get a low rate bond, or with that is to help smooth out those costs, to not have a rate shock, and to make sure that the fund maintains an operational cash balance.
Thank you. Now, I have a couple more. we know that there's enough signatures on the ballot initiative for November, and this will have to do with the repeal of the SB1. What we really want to make sure that we can encourage is getting full recognition for what monies are improving these projects. Show us that they're Measure D projects, show us that they're SB1 projects, and make sure that our community is fully made aware of where the monies come from so that we can get these transportation improvement projects completed or that are in the works. So every time we bring up something, we need to know where that label's going to be on anything that we're doing here that are coming from those fund sources, because it's going to be an uphill battle. We know that the gas tax is going to go up significantly at the same timing that this is going to go on the ballot. So we need to do everything we can to educate the public of how the money is being spent. And alongside of that is the accountability for our Measure D. And I don't know if we have anybody representative of Watsonville that's part of this audit committee for our Measure D or not for, I think, the RTC. So I don't know who that might be, but I know we need to have somebody because we're going to need to make sure that we're watching our D money so that we have it just like we're doing on a process of the G funds as well. So I don't know who that is, but we should probably know and make sure that we get that accounted for. And when we heard about the Chrome 6 and the money going into it, memory says that we talked to the public and it was presented to us that the money was to be used for Chrome 6. So if that isn't to occur and the money has been accrued as we've been collecting money for that, we need to make sure that the public is fully aware of what they want done with this instead of just assume we can roll it over to other projects, because we had to sell this to the public that we were increasing as a result of that. So we need to make sure we're fully accounted if we no longer need to be paying the money towards that. Whether it's reallocated or not, we need to make sure that it's a transparent process. And that's the end of my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Question time for the council. Seeing no further questions from the council, let's throw this out to the public and see if the public has any comments on our budget study. You know, we'll get another shot or two at this, so but give it your best.
Yes, I certainly do. Trina raised it. SB1 is polling well. One member of the legislature was recalled because he supported the gas tax. It's a little worrisome. I'm wondering whether the city manager has an idea as to if it is repealed, what do we do to replace those funds? And the hotel tax. I spoke to your predecessor. He never did tell me where these 3 wonderful hotels are going to be built. In Watsonville, I do hope one of them is not a Trump hotel. Hopefully not. And maybe we should, the 3 new hotels that are going in, we should obviously do a great deal to recruit organizations to have their conventions here, because it is a bed tax. So can the city manager address either one of these issues? Because yes, I am a little concerned about both of these. Thank you.
I can respond to those quickly. One of the hotels has pulled their building permit. That'll be a Hampton Inn off Lee Road, that new commercial development. The other permit for the new hotel to replace the National 9, that's the pink hotel at the end of Main Street and Freedom. That permit is in the works as well. And as phase 2 of the Lee Road project, there will be a second hotel once the first is completed. So that is in the pipeline and down the road. And no Trump hotel is going into any of those locations, just for the record. Thanks.
Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. Thank you for that really good report. It's very clear, very easy to understand, and a lot of work. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Kaufman-Gomez, for your comment about the Chromium 6 funding and how that really, you need to use it for what you told the people you were going to use it for, and be very clear that things have changed. So thank you for that transparency. I would like to ask, in determining the priority of funding projects, how this is meshing with your strategic plan. If some of the strategic plan priorities were used or will be used in figuring out how you're going to fund things, just because of what we've heard tonight. I would also like to ask, in one of the slides it showed in a capital funding, fire got $212,000, and then it was just a big blank all the way across. I live in the rural areas. I am always watching out for the fire department, and I would like an explanation of why it was a big blank for all the rest of the years in the future. And to that end, does the city of Watsonville get any Proposition 172 state public safety sales tax money? There's a half-cent sales tax that for the county brings in $17 million. And it is left up to each jurisdiction how they split that between fire and police. And so my question is, does the city get any of that pot of money? And if so, how is it spent? How is it divided? I am happy to see that the airport is being well maintained. I'm a ham radio operator and have worked in emergency communications and really value that airport in times of emergencies, as I'm sure you all do, and I really am happy to see that you're taking good care of it. And then lastly, just something that I learned today at the County Board of Supervisors meeting, they're putting forth $900,000 a year into the future for lighted pedestrian crosswalks. And so I'd like to, I would hope that you might get some of that money. I know it's county money, but you're in there, and it's an issue that we all really need to address. Thank you very much for your good work.
Thank you very much for your questions as well. Staff want to take a shot at any of those questions? I would just say that the melding of the strategic plan and the budget, they need to go hand in hand, and it's a partnership, and we won't be tweaking the strategic plan much after its final approval, but we will have some flexibility with the budget, and they'll be marching down the same road together. And you'll see that here in a public way. About that 172.
We do receive Prop 172 money in this fiscal year. We're budgeting for $240,000. So we do have that, and that is supporting our public safety departments. In terms of the question about the fire expenditures and then zero, so the 212 represents what fire is requesting to be appropriated, I think mostly from Measure G this fiscal year. They have more Measure G reserves that will be going to fund and going to pay for vehicle replacement and the payments of the vehicle once it gets delivered in future fiscal years. They just didn't include that in the plan for now.
Thank you very much. Could we have some more questions from the public, please? Questions from the public on our budget study session. Public will get another chance to look at this. Let me ask if we saw some slides tonight that weren't in our electronic presentation. Will those be available to the public at our next or on our website so that the public can also see those?
Yeah, I can post this to our finance department website.
I just thought there were some very nice graphics, and sometimes the picture tells a story. Yep. Thank you. Other comments from the council? Questions?
It's not, I don't think you need to vote on it.
Say again?
Sorry. We don't have to vote.
I couldn't hear you.
I said I move to accept anything, life.
Very accepting. City manager's comments?
I would just close by saying that we're cautiously optimistic about our position financially. We're in a better place than we have been for several years. But the big risks that loom out there continue to be the Measure G as the sunset comes up. That's a $3.9 million revenue stream that could potentially be sunsetting, and continuing to manage the growing pension costs and our significant deferred maintenance. And so those are going to be our priorities as we go forward. and our hope is that we'll continue to see our revenues grow over the next couple of years.
Very good. We have had public hearing, comments from the public. The public hearing was closed. We've heard from the city manager's comments. We've heard the council's discussion. There was a motion, remind me, it was by Dutra, and second by Kaufman Gomez. Am I correct?
There is no motion.
There was no motion? No appropriate motion. I thought we had,
Not needed.
we don't need one for the budget study? Very good.
I'll make a motion for there but to be no motion.
Yes, it is. It's been a busy day here, and it's been a busy week, and it's been a busy month, and a busy year, and so we've got more work to do. Let's see if there's any emergency items to add to our future agenda. Emergency items? Seeing none, any requests for scheduling of future agenda items? Councilmember Garcia first, then Hernandez. Thank you.
I've made these requests several times, and so I'm making them again. One is we adopted a climate action plan in 2015, and we're supposed to get an update. However, I was told that our update would be given in the spring, and it's almost summer, so I'm requesting that we have that update on our climate action plan. The second request I made before is that last year Governor Brown signed 15 bills to support housing. I hear most assist urban areas, but I want to know if Watsonville can take advantage of any of them. And with that report, I would like to add that I'd like to know what Watsonville needs to do to consider the accessory dwelling units, or granny units as they're more commonly known.
Thank you very much. I think staff duly notes that. And, you know, in my walking around town, we certainly saw a lot of ADA units. Boy, there's a A, a B, a C, and a D, and a X, Y, Z some places. Wow.
And terrible parking.
Let's go to Hernandez.
Earlier today, it was mentioned about the plastic straws, and I know that some of our Public Works Division has been going out to the local businesses. And I know that some of the businesses have been changing their policy so that they do have the policy where they must ask for their straw. Yeah. And so with that, I want to also explore, or have the city council explore, a possible ordinance for a no straw ordinance. I think we have some people that are really capable and have a lot of information to have different ordinances throughout the state that can assist us with that as well. This last weekend, we had the lady that made the last plastic straw, the film producer, and she's been really active in collecting all the ordinances that exist and trying to get the best possible ordinance from different cities. So that would be one of the things I'd like to see.
Thank you very much. I think staff has that down, and I think it is already on their agenda, because I know it's on the county's agenda through the Integrated Waste Task Force, and included in straws are recyclable utensils. We have a styrofoam ban, if I'm not mistaken, and that's already been in effect. And I think we're moving toward that. We've moved forward with the food waste composting or collection as well. And so I think we're making progress. But thanks for reminding us. And let's get with a regional approach so that when you go into Freedom, you can't get a plastic straw, and you shouldn't be able to get one in Watsonville either. Simplify it. Councilmember Kaufman Gomez.
Thank you. I'll keep it simple, not really request something on the agenda. Just the confirmation that our city is placing on the website somewhere the boards and commission meetings that each of us are representing the city on behalf. Because I know comments have come up in the past that the transparency isn't there, that I'm representing one agency, but the community is not aware of what's going on when I'm on the agenda or when the agenda is being discussed with the minutes and whatnot. And we have quite a few agencies and commissions and boards that we represent, and we want to make sure that the public is engaged in the process of knowing when and where they meet, what's being talked about, what the agenda looks like, and having access to that information on our website.
You're very correct. There's always a lot of change-ups, too, with alternates and members leaving and coming and leaving, and not everybody can do everything. And so thank you very much for serving on so many of those committees and boards. Any other thing for the good of the public order here at this time? Let me just thank staff for their patience this evening, and let me thank the taxpayers and those who fund this operation and utilize our services as well. We're indebted, and we want to have a very transparent and easy time to get information and access even those very complicated things. And so with that said, I will adjourn this meeting and say thank you very much for all.